2,000-year-old mystery surrounding a legendary queen of Egypt named Cleopatra remains unsolved. A mummy said to carry a deadly curse terrified people throughout the last century. An ancient tomb hidden deep beneath the earth, containing secrets and immense treasures that have never been touched. And even ancient fossils with such strange shapes that, at first glance, many believe them to be extraterrestrial beings. What are all these things trying to tell us? Has the past ever truly rested? Or is every layer of earth and stone we dig up merely a small doorway leading into the vast labyrinth of history's mysteries? The more we explore, the more we realize that the ancient world is far more complex than what we once learned in textbooks. Behind the glory of kings, beyond the legends passed down through generations, there are always shadows that have never been brought into the light. Welcome to the Ancient History Channel. My friends, if you've ever thought history was dry or distant, today might make you think again. There are mysteries that have puzzled scientists for hundreds of years, discoveries that have overturned long-standing theories, and stories that grow more chilling the deeper you investigate them. So let's slow down for a moment, open our curiosity, and listen carefully to what the past is whispering through every ruin, every mummy, and every ancient fossil brought to light by archaeologists in today's video. And now, without keeping you waiting any longer, let's move on to our very first discovery. Cleopatra, the powerful queen and a 2,000-year-old mystery still unsolved. When speaking of the ancient world, there is one name that, even after more than 2,000 years, continues to spark discussion, debate, and curiosity: Cleopatra. She is remembered not only as a symbol of beauty, but also as the embodiment of intelligence, ambition, and rare political skill. Yet what keeps Cleopatra's story from ever fading may lie not only in her turbulent life, but also in a mystery that remains unsolved: the final resting place of the last queen of ancient Egypt. Cleopatra VII was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Macedonian Greek lineage that ruled Egypt after the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BC. Though of Greek blood, she regarded herself as the legitimate pharaoh of Egypt and was worshipped by her people as a living goddess. Ascending to the throne at age 17, she ruled from 51 to 30 BC. Cleopatra was not only the last female pharaoh, but also the ruler who witnessed the end of a dynasty that had lasted nearly 3 centuries. According to dynastic custom, she was required to marry her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, when he was just 12 years old. Though officially co-rulers, Cleopatra refused to share real power. She had her portrait and name minted on coins, removing her young husband's name from official documents, a bold act in a society that still favored male authority. This raises an important question: how was she able to do so? The answer lies within Egyptian culture itself, where women, though not entirely equal, still had certain opportunities to hold power, especially within the royal family. Yet power never came easily. Internal political conflict forced Cleopatra into exile. To reclaim her throne, she turned to a force even more powerful than Egypt: Rome. The man she chose was Julius Caesar. The meeting between Cleopatra and Caesar became one of history's most famous stories. Legend says she was secretly smuggled into Caesar's palace, wrapped inside a rolled carpet. But behind the romance was calculated political strategy. With Caesar's support, Ptolemy XIII was defeated and killed. Cleopatra regained her throne and married another younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, to legitimize her authority. In 47 BC, she gave birth to a son with Caesar, naming him Caesarion. The child was not only the result of their relationship, but also a strategic piece in strengthening Egypt's political position. Cleopatra even followed Caesar to Rome, placing him in a delicate position between personal loyalty and political reality. But her ambitions were abruptly cut short when Caesar was assassinated at the Senate of Pompeii by the Republican faction led by Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus. After this upheaval, Cleopatra returned to Egypt and declared Caesarion her co-ruler. Yet the political storm in Rome was far from over. The power vacuum led to the formation of the Second Triumvirate, which included Mark Antony. The meeting between Antony and Cleopatra opened a new chapter filled with passion and danger. Though Antony was married to Octavia Minor, the sister of Augustus, he became deeply devoted to the Egyptian queen. And as you might expect, like many powerful alliances throughout history, their union was not merely romantic, it was a direct challenge to Rome. Octavian, later known as Augustus, skillfully spread propaganda claiming that Antony was betraying Rome to grant power to Cleopatra. Tensions escalated, leading to inevitable confrontation. In 31 BC, at the Battle of Actium off the coast of Greece, the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra suffered a devastating defeat. 1 year later, as Octavian's forces advanced into Egypt, tragedy reached its conclusion. Antony took his own life. According to legend, Cleopatra allowed a venomous snake to bite her, though some theories suggest she was murdered. With her death in 30 BC, Egypt officially became a province of the Roman Empire. But the story does not end there. According to several ancient sources, Octavian permitted Antony and Cleopatra to be buried together. However, the location of their tomb has never been clearly identified. For over 2,000 years, generations of scholars and archaeologists have tirelessly searched for the final resting place of this powerful couple. One of the most notable theories centers on the Temple of Osiris at Taposiris Magna, near Alexandria. Under the leadership of archaeologist Zahi Hawass, 27 tombs were excavated behind the temple. 20 featured partially submerged domed structures, and 7 had staircases leading down into burial chambers. Remarkably, all the mummies were positioned facing the temple, a sign that the site may be connected to an important royal figure. Dominican archaeologist Kathleen Martinez believes this very temple may conceal one of history's greatest treasures, the tomb of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Discoveries such as a bust of Cleopatra, 22 coins bearing her image, amulets, headless statues, and a mask of a man with a cleft chin believed to represent Antony have further strengthened this theory. In 2015, during a British documentary, Martinez announced that they were very close to a groundbreaking discovery at Taposiris Magna. So let me ask you, if one day the doors of that tomb are finally opened, what will be revealed? A legendary love story? Or evidence of ruthless political conspiracy? Cleopatra, the woman who once shook all of Rome, still seems to challenge history itself, compelling us to continue searching. Perhaps that is why Cleopatra is not merely a historical figure. She is a symbol of power, intelligence, ambition, and tragedy. And until the mystery of her final resting place is solved, her story will continue to be told, continue to be excavated, and continue to hold us captive. The mummy of a woman brutally murdered with an axe. In the quiet rooms of a museum in Northern Ireland, an ancient Egyptian woman lay for nearly 2 centuries, yet the true story of her death has only recently come to light. That woman is Takabuti, a famous Egyptian mummy who first arrived in Northern Ireland following the wave of antiquities trading after the Napoleonic Wars, and a silent witness to a dramatic murder that took place 2,600 years ago. Takabuti was brought to Ireland in 1834 and first unwrapped before the public in 1835. Beneath the flickering oil lamps of the 19th century, scholars and aristocrats gathered around an Egyptian coffin, intrigued by the hieroglyphs carved into its ancient wooden surface. Those inscriptions provided experts with the first clues about her identity. Her name was Takabuti. She lived in Thebes, the magnificent capital of ancient Egypt, now known as Luxor. She was the wife or possibly the companion of a powerful nobleman of her time. A woman of the upper class living in luxury, carefully buried, her hair neatly arranged. At first glance, anyone would assume she died of illness or old age, right? But no. The truth was entirely different. For decades, Takabuti's death remained a profound mystery. No one knew what had happened in her final days, until a team of British scientists, including Professor Rosalie David from the University of Manchester and Professor Eileen Murphy from Queen's University Belfast, decided to re-examine the mummy using modern technology. They did not rely on visual inspection alone. They conducted DNA analysis, X-rays, CT scans, hair sampling, and even chemical analysis of the embalming materials. Layer by layer, new secrets were gradually uncovered, much like unwrapping the linen bandages that once encased her ancient body. Then came a shocking discovery. Takabuti did not die of illness. She was murdered. CT imaging revealed a deep wound in her back, near her left shoulder blade. The injury had pierced through her rib with tremendous force. After careful analysis, researchers concluded that a sharp, crescent-shaped battle axe had struck her from behind. The blow drove violently into her body, causing catastrophic damage and leading to almost instantaneous death. Pause for a moment and imagine that scene. A young noblewoman, completely healthy, perhaps trying to flee, the killer standing behind her, arm drawn back to generate maximum force before swinging the axe down. It all happened in seconds. No chance to fight back, no time to cry out for help. Analysis suggests Takabuti may have been attempting to run away. The wound to her back indicates she was not facing her attacker. That raises a chilling question. Who struck the fatal blow? One theory suggests she may have fallen victim to Assyrian soldiers during a period of conflict. But an even more unsettling possibility remains. She may have been killed by someone close to her. Takabuti may have been the victim of someone she trusted, the research team concluded. Hearing that, it's hard not to feel a chill, isn't it? But there's more. CT results also indicate that Takabuti died at a very young age, likely in her 20s or early 30s. In that era, the average life expectancy in ancient Egypt roughly corresponded to what we might consider middle age today, making her death especially premature. Professor Rosalie David admitted she felt some relief knowing the death was nearly instantaneous. She did not suffer prolonged pain, she said. What makes the story even more moving is the way Takabuti was buried. Despite her sudden and violent death, she was carefully prepared by her family. Her hair was neatly arranged, and her body was embalmed according to formal ritual practices. This suggests that those close to her held deep affection for the unfortunate young woman. Once displayed as a curiosity in the 19th century, Takabuti has now become the center of a dramatic story involving conspiracy, betrayal, and modern science. Today's technology has allowed her to speak after 2,600 years of silence. And here's what's truly fascinating. History does not always rest quietly in books. Sometimes it lies within a small cut on a rib bone. Sometimes it hides in a single surviving strand of hair. Every mummy is not merely a preserved body, but an untold story waiting to be decoded. When we look at Takabuti, we do not see only an ancient Egyptian woman. We see a life abruptly ended by violence. We see the grief of her family, and we see the power of science to bring truth into the light. 2,600 years ago, she fell from an axe strike to her back. 2,600 years later, the world finally knows what happened. Do you think there are many others like Takabuti still waiting for their stories to be told? I believe there are. After all, this world is, in the end, still full of mysteries, isn't it? Full of mystery. 1,000-year-old skeleton at Prague Castle that left scientists struggling to determine its origins. In the heart of historic Europe, within the solemn grounds of Prague Castle, a 1,000-year-old skeleton once left scientists, and even political powers, scratching their heads for nearly a century. The story of the skeleton is believed to have begun on July 11, 1928, when researchers from the Czechoslovak National Museum conducted a historical survey within the castle grounds. No one suspected that beneath what seemed like peaceful soil lay a secret that would spark controversy across multiple regimes. That secret was the 1,000-year-old set of human remains we are discussing. The skeleton was discovered at the edge of a burial site dating from AD 800 to 1000. Inside the grave were not only bones, but also weapons: a sword, an axe, and flint. This immediately drew the attention of archaeologists, as this was not a typical medieval burial for an ordinary person. The man who uncovered the grave was Ivan Borkovsky, a Ukrainian archaeologist who had fought for both the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Russia in the early 20th century. What followed was even more remarkable. In 1939, when Nazi Germany occupied Czechoslovakia, officials quickly declared that the skeleton was German, or at least a Viking warrior, but certainly not Slavic. Why? Because the sword and axe buried with the remains bore characteristics associated with Nordic culture. The Nazis did not stop at academic speculation. They used the discovery to support their broader theory of widespread Germanic origins across Europe. They even claimed that Prague Castle itself belonged to the Germans. Just like that, a 1,000-year-old skeleton became a tool of political propaganda. Then in 1945, when the Soviet Union liberated Czechoslovakia, the narrative shifted again. Soviet authorities insisted that the skeleton was of Slavic origin. Once more, the identity of the deceased was pulled into the vortex of power politics. You see, history is not always written solely through documents. Sometimes it is shaped by the will of those in power. Ironic, isn't it? For decades afterward, scientists continued to debate the issue. Some suggested the individual may have been a local Slav influenced by Viking culture. Others believed he was a true Norse warrior who had traveled into Central Europe. It was not until a more recent study published in the journal Antiquity that previous analyses and hypotheses were systematically re-examined. The report concluded that the grave goods represented a clear cultural mixture. The sword, axe, and flint were typical Viking equipment. Meanwhile, the bucket and knives reflected local Czech characteristics. The sword in particular was considered highly significant. Among approximately 1,500 medieval graves discovered at Prague Castle, this was the only one containing a sword. That strongly suggests the man buried there was no ordinary figure. Finally, through modern DNA analysis, the Slavic origin of the skeleton was confirmed. After nearly a century of debate, the biological identity of the man was clarified. Yet one question still lingers. Why was a Slav buried with a sword of foreign origin? Had he traded with Vikings? Was he a warrior who served in a multi-ethnic army? Or was he a symbol of a powerful era of cultural exchange between Northern and Central Europe? These questions remain unanswered. An unnamed skeleton, shaped by the tides of history, became the center of both scientific and political debate, proving that history can sometimes resemble an ancient grave. You may uncover the bones, but understanding the full story behind them requires time and patience. The massive treasure aboard the San Jose. Some undersea mysteries have captivated global attention for centuries. When a ship vanishes into cold waters, not only does it take lost sailors with it, but sometimes it carries a priceless hoard for humanity, both literally and metaphorically. Among them, no shipwreck is as coveted or as controversial in the archaeological field among governments or treasure hunters worldwide as the San Jose, the legendary galleon now lying silently beneath the Caribbean Sea off the coast of Colombia. San Jose, a name that might sound modest, but behind it lies a bloody, fierce, and bitterly disputed story. Its final voyage began like many others of its time, transporting a colossal treasure from the New World back to Europe to fund the costly succession wars embroiling the Spanish Empire. Yet San Jose never made it home. In June 1708, off the coast of Cartagena, one of Spain's strongest fortresses in the New World, the San Jose came under attack by British warships in a fierce naval battle. In the blink of an eye, the ship sank with an estimated 200 tons of gold, silver, and raw gemstones aboard, claiming nearly 600 crew members. Only a handful survived, and the treasure, valued at anywhere from a few billion to over 20 billion US dollars, disappeared into legend. Can you imagine what lies beneath the Caribbean seabed? Chests lined with royal crests of gold, pure silver from the famed mines of Bolivia and Peru, uncut emeralds yet to be polished, all destined to strengthen the economy of Europe's most powerful empire at that time. Instead of reaching Madrid, the treasure was swallowed by ocean waves, forever turning into the most sought-after legend in world maritime history. But here's what makes this story more compelling. The dispute over San Jose's treasure has never ended. In 1982, a U.S. salvage company claimed to have found the wreck of San Jose, but Colombia, the nation's sovereign over the waters where the ship sank, disputed that claim, stating that it was only in 2015 that they located the actual resting place of the wreck. Matters grew even more complex when Spain asserted ownership, arguing that the ship remained Spanish state property despite over 300 years having passed. And did you know this? An indigenous tribe in Bolivia also filed a claim for a share of the treasure, stating that their ancestors were forced to mine the silver aboard San Jose, and therefore they are entitled to justice for their forebears. A ship, a treasure, and a conflict spanning legal, political, historical, and ethical realms, all centered around the San Jose shipwreck. So the question arises, can modern individuals or institutions truly lay claim to a treasure from another era? Colombian law is unmistakably clear. All underwater archaeological objects within national waters belong to the state and cannot be sold or divided. No matter how high its worth, be it billions or tens of billions, the treasure remains non-commercial Colombian heritage. It's ironic, isn't it? A massive treasure resting untouched on the ocean floor, its value known in staggering figures, yet any attempt to handle it is bound by complex legal rules, deep-seated disputes, and unresolved history. Still, from an archaeological perspective, the San Jose is an unopened time capsule. It is not only a material treasure, but a living historical archive, potentially revealing sea routes, war tactics, shipbuilding technology, and the lives of 18th century societies. In that sense, its true value surpasses mere billions of dollars. It's a part of humanity's collective memory. Face down remains in an ancient grave and the shocking mystery of the undead curse. Did you know that the ancient world holds mysteries in its own unique way? Archaeology does not always uncover gold or treasure. Sometimes, what is brought to light is fear itself. 6 years ago, in Germany, archaeologists discovered an ancient grave with a burial position so unsettling it sent chills down anyone's spine. Skeletal remains lying face down in the earth, beside a knife and a pouch filled with coins. So why would someone be buried in such a strange way? Was it a form of punishment or part of some mysterious ritual? To answer that question, Professor Amélie Alteraga, an anthropologist at the Institute of Forensic Medicine at the University of Bern in Switzerland, began a detailed investigation. The findings determined that the remains belonged to a man who had died of the plague. The grave dates back to approximately 1630 to 1650, around the time plague outbreaks were devastating the region. But what captured scientists' attention was not only the cause of death, it was the burial position. In an article published in the scientific journal PLOS One, Professor Alteraga stated that the face-down posture was not accidental. It was intentionally done to prevent the dead from rising from the grave and returning as undead beings to harm the living. It may sound like something from a modern horror film, but for medieval Europeans, this fear was very real. To strengthen this conclusion, Dr. Alteraga and her colleague Sandra Losch, head of physical anthropology at the University of Bern, examined nearly 100 additional ancient graves excavated across Switzerland, Germany, and Austria over the past 900 years. A striking pattern emerged. Many of the remains had also been buried face down. Most of these graves dated to periods when plague outbreaks were particularly severe. Researchers also found references in historical documents to the term Nachzehrer, which can be translated as corpse eater. This was how people of the time described bodies believed to be gnawing on their burial shrouds and draining the life force of the living. In simpler terms, this was the medieval version of a zombie. This suggests that face-down burials were not random superstition, but rather a response rooted in collective fear during times of epidemic disease. Another study cited by National Geographic indicates that this unusual burial custom first appeared around 1347 when the plague swept across Europe, claiming millions of lives. When nearly half the continent's population perished, society descended into panic. People needed an explanation for the catastrophe. The idea that the dead were returning to curse the living may have seemed like the most understandable answer at the time. Yet the truth behind the rising from the grave legend is far more scientific. According to Professor Alteraga, the plague ravaged the body at a terrifying pace, causing rapid death. Victims often developed swollen lymph nodes and decomposed quickly if not buried promptly. After death, gases accumulated in the intestines, causing the body to bloat and sometimes produce strange sounds and a powerful stench. As the skin contracted during decomposition, hair and fingernails appeared to grow longer. Joints could make noises as the body shifted. Soft tissue shrinkage could even make it look as though the corpse were biting its burial shroud. With limited medical knowledge at the time, all of these natural processes created a horrifying image. A corpse that seemed to be moving. Imagine placing yourself in the 14th or 17th century. A loved one has just died from a mysterious illness. In the night, the body makes sounds. Would you assume it was simply biological chemistry at work? Or might you believe the dead were trying to return? Professor Alteraga explains that before the plague spread widely, Europe had no clear concept of vampires or undead beings. But as the disease killed millions, Europeans gradually adopted Slavic legends about the dead rising from their graves. Those stories provided what seemed like a logical explanation for the strange occurrences around burial sites. Additionally, because people did not understand how disease spread, many believed that if someone attended a funeral and later fell ill and died, it was due to a curse from the deceased. That belief led them to take extreme measures to prevent the imagined threat. Burying a body face down became a kind of spiritual insurance policy. If the dead tried to claw their way out, they would only dig deeper into the earth. Looking back, we may smile at those ancient beliefs, But we must also recognize that in the darkness of epidemic disease and limited understanding, people did whatever they could to comfort themselves. That face-down grave is not merely an archaeological discovery. It is a mirror reflecting the deep fears of an entire era. If you had lived in those circumstances, what would you have done? Would you have taken the same steps to ensure the dead never returned? 280-million-year-old fossil creature in Western Australia that made the world mistake it for an alien. Have you ever been scrolling online and come across an image so strange you had to rub your eyes and look again? A creature lying motionless in stone, with a round body and 5 arms stretched outward as if reaching up from beneath the earth, looking like something straight out of another planet. Many people quickly declared with confidence, "This must be the fossil of an alien." But wait, if we take a closer look and follow the story behind it, the truth turns out to be even more fascinating than any UFO theory. The fossil causing such a stir is actually about 280 million years old, dating back to the Permian period, long before the age of dinosaurs. The creature is called Jimbocrinus, a species of crinoid, commonly known as a sea lily. The name sounds delicate, but the first time most people see its fossil, they're startled. These fossil specimens were discovered near Gascoyne Junction, a remote area of Western Australia known for its geological diversity. The viral images show multiple individuals preserved side by side in sedimentary rock, nearly intact. This suggests they were buried in their natural habitat, possibly by a massive flood or powerful storm hundreds of millions of years ago. In reality, Jimbocrinus was a shallow-sea, bottom-dwelling animal that thrived in the waters covering much of Western Australia during the Permian. It grew to about 9 inches long, with 5 arms radiating from its central body. Those arms weren't meant to frighten anything. They were used to capture food particles and tiny organisms drifting in the water. Like other crinoids, it belongs to the echinoderm group, distant relatives of modern-day starfish and sea urchins. Interestingly, crinoids were among the earliest echinoderms to appear in Earth's fossil record. Over hundreds of millions of years, their body structure changed very little. During the Paleozoic era, crinoids were so abundant that limestone in many regions is packed with fragments of them. In a sense, they were once among the most crowded residents of the ancient oceans. Jimbocrinus fossils were first discovered in 1949 by a cattle station manager nicknamed Jimba Jimba, which is how the genus name Jimbocrinus originated. Later, researcher J. Bostock formally described and named the species based on specimens found in the Kundlego Formation. The Kundlego Formation is a sandstone layer created by flood and storm deposits in the early Permian, about 275 million years ago. It runs along a dry creek bed and contains remains of many marine bottom-dwelling organisms from that time. What excites scientists is that fossils from this site are often exceptionally well preserved, among the finest examples in the world, and are rarely found elsewhere. Thanks to this remarkable preservation, researchers have been able to examine internal structures and even traces of soft tissue, which is extremely rare for fossils this ancient. However, when images of the fossils spread widely online, another issue emerged. Midwest Times traced the photo back to a US-based fossil dealer's website, where the specimen was claimed to have been legally excavated and offered for sale. This sparked debate about the legality of fossil collection and trade in Australia, as regulations vary by state. A representative of the Western Australian Museum, David Gear, clarified that in some cases, collecting and exporting fossils can be legal, but collectors must hold proper permits and follow strict guidelines. He also emphasized that, whenever possible, fossils are best left in their natural environment, as each specimen contains valuable scientific data about the history of life. And speaking of the history of life, we cannot overlook one dramatic event, the Great Dying at the end of the Permian period. This was the most severe mass extinction ever recorded, wiping out more than 90% of marine species. Global temperatures soared, oceans became warmer and more acidic, methane and metal concentrations spiked, and oxygen levels dropped dramatically, creating an environment nearly impossible to survive in. During that catastrophe, most crinoids were wiped out, yet a small number survived and continued to evolve. Today, more than 600 species of crinoids still exist on Earth. Think about that. From ancient oceans 280 million years ago to today's deep seas, that lineage has never been completely broken. Isn't that remarkable? There's another fascinating detail. The fossilized shape of crinoids inspired the design of the sentinels in the movie The Matrix. Those underground machines with long-reaching tentacles? Look closely, and don't they resemble sea lilies? So next time someone tells you they've seen a 280 million-year-old alien fossil, you can smile and tell them the story of Jimbacrinus. Because sometimes, what makes us think of distant galaxies is actually the very real imprint of an ancient ocean, right here on our own planet. 2,000-year-old fresco in Pompeii that appears to depict a modern pizza. When we think of pizza, most of us immediately picture a modern fast food, widely popular in everyday life today. But have you ever considered that pizza might have existed more than 2,000 years ago? A recent discovery in Pompeii has astonished archaeologists and completely reshaped how we view the origins of this beloved dish. While excavating the Regio 9 district, one of the most luxurious areas of the ancient city, archaeologists uncovered an ancient wall painting depicting a distinctive dining scene. What surprised researchers most was that on the table, portrayed in vivid detail, appeared a dish that is difficult not to associate with pizza. But don't imagine a modern pizza topped with cheese and spices just yet. This dish looks quite different, more like a flatbread prepared with ingredients available at the time, crafted in the creative style of Pompeii's residents. This is truly a shocking discovery, because pizza has traditionally been understood as a dish that emerged in medieval Italy, originating from earlier forms of flatbread. Yet the presence of what could be considered the ancestor of pizza in this fresco suggests that the idea of a quick, convenient flatbread meal may have existed much earlier, possibly even in ancient Roman times. It raises an intriguing question. Could the pizza we know today have a far longer history than we ever imagined? According to Gabriel Zuchtriegel, director of the Archaeological Park of Pompeii, the fresco is not merely a depiction of a meal. It also reflects elements of Greek hospitality traditions, a theme commonly represented in Roman art. The bread shown in the painting may have been a type of oven-baked flatbread, not entirely unlike foods we still enjoy today, but adapted to the ingredients and culinary techniques of that era. The fresco was discovered in an area first excavated in the 19th century, inside a luxurious villa in central Pompeii. The house was buried under volcanic ash when Mount Vesuvius erupted in AD 79. Today, what remains allows us to glimpse the refined and affluent lifestyle of ancient Roman residents. Interestingly, near the fresco, archaeologists also uncovered a large oven, suggesting that preparing and enjoying flatbread-style dishes may have been part of everyday life in Pompeii. In addition, during the excavation, researchers found the remains of 3 unfortunate victims who perished in the volcanic disaster more than 2,000 years ago. But this discovery is not the only one that has amazed archaeologists. Previous studies in Pompeii have revealed many surprisingly modern features. Streets repaired with techniques comparable to contemporary roadwork, sophisticated architectural designs with amenities approaching 21st century standards, and even a kind of ancient fast food counter, essentially a Roman takeaway shop in the city center. Pompeii remains an archaeological treasure not only because of what it reveals about Roman culture and daily life, but also because of how often it challenges our assumptions about the past. Now, with the possible presence of an ancient pizza, we are once again prompted to reconsider the history of food and culinary culture. Who would have thought that one of the world's favorite foods today might trace its origins back to a wall painting in a house in Pompeii, a city buried beneath volcanic ash more than 2,000 years ago? With every discovery at Pompeii, we open new chapters of history where ancient secrets and human creativity continue to rest beneath the soil. And with fascinating findings like this, Pompeii will undoubtedly remain a place that captures the attention of archaeologists and history enthusiasts alike, always holding new surprises waiting to be uncovered. The mystery inside the tomb of the Virgin Mary. Many of us have heard the belief that the Virgin Mary was taken up into heaven without undergoing death, a unique grace granted to her alone. But have you ever wondered whether this belief has sparked debate among different Christian communities? And could differing perspectives on this issue help us gain a deeper understanding of our own faith? Let us explore the story of the Virgin Mary and her sacred tomb, a site that draws not only Catholic believers but also scholars of religious history. One of the most notable aspects of this story is the tomb traditionally associated with the Virgin Mary, located at the foot of the Mount of Olives in the Kidron Valley in Jerusalem. This is believed to be the place where Mary rested after her death. However, this raises an important question. If Mary was assumed into heaven without dying, why does a tomb of Mary exist? This question has fueled theological discussion throughout Christian history. Possible answers can be found in ancient religious texts, including the Bible and other early writings such as Toledot Yeshu. According to long-standing tradition, the Virgin Mary died peacefully and naturally after falling asleep, a belief preserved in the Eastern Orthodox Church, which commemorates the dormition of the Theotokos, the falling asleep of the Mother of God. Although her exact age at the time of death is unclear, ancient accounts state that on the third day after her passing, Mary was taken up body and soul into heaven. Notably, after her funeral, her tomb at Gethsemane, near the foot of the Mount of Olives, was reportedly found empty, adding to the mystery and sacred significance of the site. The Catholic Encyclopedia records some of the earliest documents concerning the life of the Virgin Mary. One important source is a 2nd century text attributed to St. John and recorded by Lencius, describing how St. John and his disciple Prochorus traveled to Ephesus after Mary's death. Other 3rd and 4th century works, such as Joannes Liber de Dormitione Mariae and De Transitu Bm Virginis, also reference Mary's tomb in Gethsemane. A significant 5th century account comes from Cyril of Scythopolis, who wrote that the Eastern Roman Emperor Marcian and Empress Pulcheria requested relics of the Virgin Mary. They were told that no relics existed because she had been taken up into heaven. From the earliest centuries of Christianity, Mary's tomb has been regarded as one of the most sacred sites. In 1972, archaeologist and Franciscan priest Bellarmino Bagatti conducted research at the site. He concluded that the area may have been a 1st century cemetery and could very well have been the burial place of several notable biblical figures. During the investigation, researchers identified 3 burial chambers and confirmed that the tomb corresponded with descriptions found in ancient texts. In the 5th century, a small church was built near Mary's tomb. However, in 614, it was destroyed during the Persian invasion. Even so, the site continued to be regarded as sacred. During the period of Muslim rule in Jerusalem, it was also believed to be the burial place of the Virgin Mary. In 1130, after the Crusaders captured Jerusalem, they rebuilt a church on the site and entrusted it to the Benedictine monks. This Gothic-style church stood until it was destroyed by the Muslim ruler Saladin in 1187. However, the underground tomb remained intact. Another church was constructed in the second half of the 14th century and became a Franciscan monastery. Despite centuries of upheaval, the tomb of the Virgin Mary has retained its sacred character, attracting thousands of pilgrims and visitors. Today, the site is not only an important pilgrimage destination, but also an essential part of Christian history. In addition to the Virgin Mary's tomb, the site is traditionally associated with the burial places of her parents, Saint Joachim and Saint Anne, as well as the tomb of Melisende, who ruled Jerusalem in the 12th century. For these reasons, it is no surprise that the tomb of the Virgin Mary continues to draw great attention from believers and travelers visiting Jerusalem. It has become a powerful symbol of faith, sacred tradition, and religious history across the centuries. With all these stories and historical events, the tomb of the Virgin Mary is not merely a spiritual site, it is also a living symbol of the connection between past and present, between history and faith, between 70,000-year-old mammoth fossil on the shore of an ancient lake. During an unexpected survey at the American Falls Reservoir in Idaho, a volunteer with the Bureau of Reclamation discovered fragments of ancient mammoth bones exposed along the shoreline, launching a dramatic new chapter for archaeologists. The bone fragments were determined to be approximately 70,000 years old, leaving many in awe of the remarkable durability and preservation of these fossils after tens of thousands of years buried beneath the earth. Paleontologists and enthusiastic students immediately began the careful excavation of the mammoth's skull and tusk at the site. Over the course of 2.5 intense yet exciting days, they recovered several skull fragments along with a valuable tusk. However, the suspicion that more remains of the massive animal are still buried deep underground has only heightened the team's curiosity and determination. To retrieve the entire skeleton, experts brought in heavy excavation equipment and prepared to transport the precious bones to the Idaho Museum of Natural History in the city of Pocatello, where extensive and promising research is expected to take place. Notably, Mary Thompson, a veteran paleontologist who has worked with the museum for more than 3 decades, stated that she has never seen a complete mammoth skeleton in person throughout her entire career. This makes the new discovery especially invaluable and meaningful. She and her team are planning to return to the reservoir next season, when water levels drop, to continue searching for and excavating additional fossils. Their goal is to further complete the picture of this giant species that once roamed the Earth but has long since vanished. Doesn't it feel exciting to take part in a journey that uncovers ancient traces of life and helps us better understand the mysterious past of our planet? Imagine each bone fragment carefully pieced together, telling the story of nature and life as they unfolded over thousands of years. Every new discovery reveals previously unknown secrets about the Ice Age and prehistoric creatures. This is living proof that archaeology is not only the work of scientists, it is also an adventure for all humanity, where every excavation and every bone uncovered has the potential to reshape our understanding of Earth's history. What do you think about these surprising and promising discoveries? Could a complete mammoth skeleton soon be assembled and displayed, transporting us back to a lost world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Mass grave of 25 Nazi-era victims in a forest outside Warsaw. In a quiet forest on the outskirts of Warsaw, the capital of Poland, where today only the wind moves through the tall trees and the scent of damp soil lingers after the rain, a discovery has just shaken all of Europe. It was not a rare artifact nor a buried treasure, but a mass grave containing the remains of more than 25 people, including men, women, and even children. Victims murdered by the Nazi German army during the dark years of World War II. What makes this story especially haunting is not only the numbers, but the memory of a living witness. An elderly local man recalled that when he was about 7, perhaps 8 years old, he saw German soldiers leading a group of prisoners into this very forest. At the time, he was too young to fully understand what was happening, yet the image remained etched in his mind for decades. Imagine being a child in the middle of a war, watching people being led away and never returning. How deeply would that memory haunt you? That testimony became a crucial lead for investigators seeking the truth. The Institute of National Remembrance of Poland stepped in. According to Tomasz Trzaska, a representative of the institute, based on the initial progress of the excavation, at least 25 sets of human remains have been confirmed at the site, and the actual number may be higher. The excavation began cautiously. On Monday, the area was sealed off and placed under strict protection. By Tuesday, as layer after layer of soil was carefully removed, what emerged was not only human bones, but a painful truth buried for more than 80 years. The remains were found laid out in straight rows beneath the ground, a detail that led investigators to believe the victims had been forced to lie down in the pit before being shot. This was not death in chaos, but an organized execution. Alongside the bones, investigators found decayed clothing, metal buttons, belts, and old shoes. These everyday items suddenly became historical evidence. They serve as reminders that the people buried there were not anonymous numbers, but human beings with families, dreams, and ordinary lives. According to documents released by Poland's Central Archives of Modern Records, the execution may have taken place in 1943. Secret wartime reports had previously recorded mass killings in the area. One report from the Polish resistance during World War II stated that on the morning of July 3rd, 4 trucks transported approximately 100 people, including women, to the forest located between Choszczówka and Legionowo. They were forced to dig trenches. Then they were all shot. At this point, you may be wondering, if nearly 100 people were executed, why have only more than 25 sets of remains been found? Could there be other graves that have yet to be discovered? That is exactly what investigators suspect. Scientists are continuing their research, conducting DNA analysis and cross-referencing archival records to identify the victims. The work may take many years, but for them, each confirmed name restores dignity to a lost soul. The war ended more than 8 decades ago, yet the wounds it left behind have never fully healed. It is estimated that nearly 6 million Polish civilians died during World War II, and more than 90% of them were non-combatants, innocent people targeted after the country was invaded in 1939. These figures are not just dry statistics, they represent millions of stories that have never been fully told. And now, in that seemingly peaceful forest, history speaks once again. The Earth cannot bury the truth forever. Each discovery like this not only deepens our understanding of the past, but also reminds us how much blood and sorrow were sacrificed for the freedom and peace we experience today. But when you look at the wars unfolding in the world today, what do you think? Do you feel afraid? Do you long for peace? 2,000-year-old black coffin in Alexandria reveals the truth behind the pharaoh's curse. Imagine this, in the heart of the bustling city of Alexandria, Egypt, about 16 feet beneath the ground, a massive black granite sarcophagus nearly 10 feet long and weighing approximately 33 tons lay undisturbed for more than 2 millennia. No inscriptions, no symbols, no clues about the identity of the person inside. Just an enormous block of cold black stone, silent and mysterious. If you were there, would you dare to open it? I doubt many would. When this sarcophagus was first excavated, rumors of a pharaoh's curse spread rapidly. Some people genuinely feared that disturbing the 1,000-year sleep of the dead could unleash disaster. Yet despite the warnings, Egyptian archaeologists decided to lift the lid. For them, historical truth mattered more than invisible fear. They wanted to know who had been buried inside that massive stone coffin. And then the moment came. According to information published by the Daily Mail, the results stunned many people. Inside were not one, but 3 mummies. However, instead of well-preserved bodies like those often portrayed in movies, all 3 had severely decomposed due to water that had seeped into the sarcophagus over thousands of years. At the time, Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, personally confirmed that the coffin had been opened. He confidently stated that they had lifted the lid, and as everyone could see, no curse had befallen them. His statement served as a powerful reminder that science and archaeology stand firm against the mystical legends woven over time. At first, many speculated that the enormous sarcophagus might be connected to royalty from the Ptolemaic or Roman periods. But upon closer inspection, researchers realized the coffin bore no inscription of any name. In ancient Egyptian culture, the absence of identification on a coffin was highly unusual for members of the royal family. The fact that no gold, silver, or precious treasures were found inside was another important clue. It strongly suggested that the 3 individuals were not of royal blood. So who were they? Initial analysis revealed dramatic details. One of the skulls showed a clear fracture. According to experts, it may have been caused by a blow from a sharp object, possibly even an arrowhead. The other 2 skulls also belonged to men. This opened up a new line of speculation. They may have been soldiers. Shaban Abd Monem, a specialist with Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities, indicated that early findings suggest the 3 mummies were likely ancient Egyptian officers. One bore an arrow wound, implying they may have fallen in battle. The sarcophagus has been dated to between 323 BC and 30 BC, a turbulent period when Rome gradually took control of Egypt following the death of the famous Queen Cleopatra. It was a time of transition, marked by the intersection of native rule and Roman influence, of ancient traditions and profound political change. Another notable detail is that the burial chamber containing the sarcophagus was considered too small compared to the grand tombs built for figures of great stature such as Alexander the Great. In fact, many nobles were buried in far larger and more elaborate tombs. This further reinforces the theory that the 3 men, while possibly holding significant positions, were not members of the royal family. Currently, the 3 mummies have been transferred to the Alexandria National Museum for further study, while the massive black sarcophagus has been moved to a military museum. Scientists continue to analyze the remains to determine their exact ages, physical conditions, and causes of death. Every bone fragment, every crack in a skull, may serve as a crucial piece of the puzzle, helping reconstruct a story from more than 2,000 years ago. Instead of a supernatural curse, what was released when the lid was opened turned out to be valuable historical data. No disaster struck, only a deeper understanding of the past. Perhaps sometimes the greatest surprise is not glittering treasure, but the simple truth about people who once lived, once fought, and were buried in silence for thousands of years. If you were standing before such a massive black coffin, would you think of a curse or of a story waiting to be told? And if it were you, would you ignore the rumors and open it anyway? If you consider yourself brave, leave a comment below. 3,500-year-old tomb in Luxor. filled with mummies and jewelry. Did you know that the ancient world, especially ancient Egypt, continues to produce discoveries that leave people breathless? Not because they are frightening, but because they feel like touching an intact slice of history. This time, in the sun-scorched land near the city of Luxor, Egypt, archaeologists have truly proven that point. They opened a doorway leading straight back to the past, approximately 3,500 years ago. And behind that doorway lay an ancient world that remains almost perfectly preserved. According to published information, the tomb dates back to around the 15th century BC during the Golden Age of ancient Egypt. Egypt's Minister of Antiquities, Khalid el-Anani, confirmed the discovery on September 9th and stated that excavation work is still ongoing. He emphasized that what has been found so far is only the beginning, as more may still lie hidden beneath the scorching sand. The tomb is believed to belong to a renowned goldsmith named Amenemhat. At first you might wonder, what is so remarkable about a goldsmith that he would be buried in such a substantial tomb? But in ancient Egyptian society, those who crafted jewelry for nobles and royalty were far more than ordinary artisans. They were master craftsmen who possessed refined techniques and closely guarded knowledge of gold, silver, and precious stones, materials that symbolized power and immortality. Inside the tomb, archaeologists discovered statues of Amenemhat and his wife carved directly into the rock. These statues are more than simple representations. They appear to affirm his status in society at the time. The carefully sculpted faces and dignified seated postures seem to tell the story of a man who once lived during the brilliant age of the pharaohs. However, what makes the excavation even more mysterious is the presence of 3 additional mummies within the tomb. According to reporting by the BBC, they include a woman around 50 years old and her 2 sons, who died in their 20s and 30s. What remains unclear is their relationship to Amenemhat. Were they close relatives, extended family members, or individuals buried there during a different period? That question still awaits an answer. Beyond the mummies, the tomb and its surrounding area contained numerous funerary artifacts. Minister Khalid el-Anani stated that the excavation team uncovered coffins, funerary combs, masks, small statues, and many finely crafted pieces of jewelry. Imagine this. After more than 3 millennia, objects once placed beside the deceased so they could carry them into the afterlife are now emerging once again under the modern sun. That moment must have sent chills through everyone present at the site. Of course, this discovery is not the only one made this year. Not long before, another tomb belonging to a judge was also uncovered in Luxor. Farther south, near the city of Aswan, Swedish archaeologists discovered 12 ancient cemeteries dating back roughly the same period, about 3,500 years ago. Clearly, the land along the Nile River still holds many untold secrets. Ancient monuments have long been one of Egypt's greatest attractions. Each new discovery not only enriches the historical record, but also reignites global curiosity. Authorities hope that findings like these will draw more visitors and help people better understand a civilization once considered one of humanity's most brilliant cradles. Yet beyond tourism or economic value, what is most thought-provoking is how time can bury and then return fragments of the past. A goldsmith who lived 3,500 years ago, a middle-aged woman, 2 young men. Their lives once unfolded among temples, workshops, and solemn rituals. Today, they stand as witnesses, helping us better understand how ancient Egyptians lived, worked, and faced death. What do you think when an ancient tomb contains not only gold and silver, but also stories that have yet to be told? How many names still lie beneath the sand, waiting to be spoken again after thousands of years of silence? Can you guess? As for me, I believe there are still many mysteries. Mysteries that may require immense time, effort, and even future generations to fully uncover. A centuries-old nobleman's mummy found fully dressed in China. Some days begin like any other. People go to work, dig soil, move rocks, lay foundations for new buildings. But sometimes, a single strike of a shovel hitting something unexpectedly solid beneath the ground is enough to change everything. At a construction site in Zizhou Village, Anhua County, Hunan Province, China, workers experienced exactly that. They did not uncover a small artifact or a broken piece of pottery. Instead, they discovered an entire centuries-old coffin buried deep into the mountainside. When the lid was opened, what lay before them was not a scattered skeleton as one might expect, but the nearly intact body of a man. He was still dressed in fine clothing made of high-quality fabric with careful, refined stitching, clearly not the attire of an ordinary person. Beside him lay a fan, perhaps a cherished possession from his lifetime. Imagine that. After hundreds of years underground, the clothing still intact, the form of his body still clearly defined. The sight must have sent chills down anyone's spine. According to reporting by the Daily Mail, the man is believed to have died during either the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644, or the Qing Dynasty, 1644 to 1912. Although the exact dynasty has not yet been confirmed, it is clear that he lived at least several centuries ago. At that time, Chinese society was highly stratified, and not everyone was buried under such well-preserved conditions. The remarkable state of the body can be attributed to the coffin's construction. Experts believe that limestone and high-quality wood were used in its design, creating a sealed environment that limited the intrusion of air and moisture. This protective structure essentially turned the coffin into a time capsule, preserving the deceased's form for hundreds of years. It was not a miracle, but rather a combination of skilled craftsmanship and favorable natural conditions. China's cultural heritage authorities believe the man may have been a noble, or at the very least, a member of a wealthy family. The quality of his clothing, the method of burial, and the placement of the coffin on a mountain believed to belong to the Wang family all suggest a person of notable status. In feudal society, the location of a grave often reflected the reputation and power of an entire lineage. Local officials stated that this is the first body from the Ming or Qing period ever discovered in such well-preserved condition in the town. The discovery has not only attracted the attention of archaeologists, but has also astonished the surrounding community. Think about it. A familiar mountain that generations have passed by was quietly guarding a centuries-old secret. How many other stories might still be sleeping beneath the surface? Immediately after the discovery, the body was removed from the site for further research. Scientists will conduct more detailed analyses to determine his age, cause of death, and to establish a more precise date. Every thread of fabric, every layer of coffin wood may provide additional insight into the craftsmanship and burial customs of that era. Meanwhile, construction at the site has been halted. Cultural heritage authorities may require an indefinite suspension of activity to ensure the area is thoroughly surveyed. While this may result in short-term economic losses, it also opens the door to significant historical research. After all, a discovery like this is not merely about one construction project, it is part of a shared cultural legacy. The story of this centuries-old nobleman invites reflection. A man who once lived in luxury, carrying a fan as he walked through times of turmoil or prosperity, now rests quietly beneath layers of earth and stone. Time has erased his titles and power, yet preserved his elegant clothing and familiar fan. It sounds almost paradoxical, doesn't it? Have you ever wondered, if one day the place where you once lived were excavated, what would people find? Could the everyday objects we use today become historical evidence hundreds of years from now? That is why this discovery in Hunan is more than just an archaeological event. It is a reminder that beneath every inch of ground we walk upon, there may lie an untold chapter of history waiting to be revealed. 6,000-year-old ghost fortress in the desert. Have you ever imagined that in the barren, desolate deserts of Jordan, where life today seems almost impossible, there once existed a thriving civilization so advanced that it leaves the modern world astonished? It sounds hard to believe, doesn't it? Yet this story is entirely real. Archaeologists have recently discovered a massive fortress dating back approximately 6,000 years, hidden beneath the scorching sands of the Jordanian desert. The existence of this remarkable structure has raised a series of challenging questions for scientists. Why was a fortress built in a place that appears nearly lifeless? Who were the people who once lived here? And how did they survive in such an unforgiving environment? The fortress shows no signs of warfare. There is no evidence suggesting that any major conflict took place there. Instead, what researchers have uncovered paints a completely different picture: a peaceful yet highly developed community, possessing technical skills and knowledge far ahead of its time. At the site, researchers found complex systems of water channels, dams, and irrigation, something almost unimaginable in a region that today is so arid it barely sees water throughout the year. These ancient inhabitants used porous volcanic stone to store water and constructed wells around wadis, dry riverbeds that carry water only during the rainy season, creating a sustainable water supply for daily life and agriculture. Their farming techniques were astonishingly sophisticated. They directed rainwater to elevated gardens, taking advantage of silt and mineral deposits to fertilize their crops. The remaining evidence shows that they not only cultivated crops and raised livestock, primarily goats and sheep, for their own needs, but also engaged in trade with other settlements. Even more impressive is the evidence that they participated in textile and garment production, an industry often associated with far more advanced societies. Wool fibers, leather goods, and even cheese and salted meat were produced here. By the middle of the 4th millennium BC, Mesopotamia, including what is now northern Iraq, had become the world's earliest center of textile production. This desert fortress in Jordan appears to have been an extension of that vibrant economic network. Aerial images reveal 3 residential areas atop the mountain, with sturdy stone walls and well-planned housing. Clear evidence that this was once an organized community with long-term planning and developmental goals. So what caused them to abandon everything and leave? There are no signs of conflict, no evidence that they were forced to flee. Only one thing is clear: they left voluntarily at some unknown point in time. Perhaps they eventually realized that living in the desert, no matter how advanced their systems, could not sustain a prosperous society forever. A fortress, a civilization, and countless unanswered questions. What truly happened to them? Beneath those dry sands, how many more secrets remain waiting to be uncovered? It is difficult to say, but this discovery has certainly changed the long-held belief that the desert is nothing but sand. Sand and more sand, with no life at all. 6,000-year-old tomb filled with gold, belonging to a mysterious female ruler. Have you ever imagined that an ordinary road construction project could shake thousands of years of history? If not, then let's travel to Romania. There, while workers were building a road connecting a highway to a nearby city, amid clouds of dust and the roar of heavy machinery, a lavish ancient tomb was unexpectedly uncovered, opening the way to an entire complex of long-hidden archaeological remains. The tomb was quickly identified as belonging to the Tisa-Polgar culture, which existed from approximately 4,500 to 4,000 BC. This prehistoric culture once spread across regions that are now part of Eastern and Central Europe. Nearly 6,000 years ago, communities here were already developed enough to establish a distinct cultural identity, complete with elaborate burial rituals and clear social stratification. As archaeologists carefully excavated the grave, they discovered the remains of a woman. But what stunned them was not only the tomb's age, it was what had been buried with her. Arranged in her hair were 169 small gold rings, positioned like symbols of power and status. Just imagine, during the Stone Age, such a large quantity of finely crafted gold would not have belonged to an ordinary individual. And that was not all. Beside her lay a multi-layered copper bracelet, expertly crafted, along with 2 gold beads and approximately 800 ornamental beads made of bone. 800 bone beads, the number alone is astonishing. These beads may once have formed a necklace or bracelet, but over time, the organic stringing material decayed and fell apart. Even so, the meticulous craftsmanship speaks volumes about the woman's wealth and social standing. Based on preliminary studies of her teeth and physical stature, experts believe she was a high-ranking woman in her society. She may have been a noble leader, perhaps even an ancient queen. More than 6 millennia ago, a woman buried with such an extraordinary quantity of gold and jewelry suggests she held significant political or spiritual authority within her community. What makes this discovery even more fascinating is that it does not stand alone. As excavations expanded to accommodate the construction project, researchers uncovered evidence of 2 houses near the town of Sant'Andrea. Inside, they found pottery dating from the 2nd century BC to the 2nd century AD. This indicates that the land had been continuously inhabited and used by different cultures across many eras, creating overlapping layers of history. Not far away, near Biharia, archaeologists also discovered a Sarmatian settlement dating from the 3rd to the 4th century AD. The Sarmatians were known as skilled nomadic warriors who once ranged widely across Eastern Europe. Their presence in the area further highlights its long-standing strategic and trade importance. When all these pieces are assembled, a clearer picture emerges. The woman in the ancient tomb was not only wealthy, she was buried in a region that served as a cultural center for successive civilizations. This strongly reinforces the view that she belonged to the elite class, a figure of considerable influence in her time. Think about it. A modern infrastructure project unintentionally awakened the story of a woman who had rested in silence for 6,000 years. It goes to show that history does not exist only in books. Sometimes it lies right beneath our feet, waiting for the moment it is uncovered. And perhaps beneath the roads we travel every day, there are still secrets that have yet to be named. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? An ancient crocodile fossil, the size of a bus in the Sahara Desert. In the barren Sahara Desert, where everything seems motionless and silent, a remarkable discovery has reshaped our understanding of the prehistoric era. Paleontologists in Tunisia have uncovered an extraordinary fossil, the remains of an ancient crocodile species far larger than the modern crocodiles we are familiar with today. What makes this discovery even more astonishing is that this species was previously unknown to science. The prehistoric crocodile is called Machimosaurus rex, described by researchers as gigantic. And that description is no exaggeration. It measured over 30 feet long and weighed approximately about 6,600 pounds. Its skull alone was more than 5 feet in length. Imagine a crocodile nearly the size of a bus. This creature was not merely a powerful predator, it was a true ruler of the prehistoric food chain. Researchers believe Machimosaurus rex was an exceptionally dominant marine crocodile that ruled the seas and lagoons where it lived approximately 130 million years ago. The discovery was published in the journal Cretaceous Research, with contributions from Federico Fonti of the University of Bologna. Fonti explained that finding the fossil of such a massive crocodile has significantly changed our understanding of prehistoric life. According to Fonti, this species was likely either an ambush predator or a scavenger, both of which would have made it a formidable presence in the ancient ecosystem. With an incredibly powerful bite, Machimosaurus rex could easily crush its prey. Hard-shelled turtles were likely among its favorite meals. But the story does not end there. This discovery also helps solve a major mystery in evolutionary history. Crocodiles belonging to the subgroup that includes Machimosaurus rex were previously believed to have gone extinct around 150 million years ago, at the end of the Jurassic period. However, the fossil evidence of Machimosaurus rex reveals a surprising truth. This crocodile species survived beyond that extinction event and was still alive about 130 million years ago, much later than previously thought. This forces scientists to reconsider long-standing theories about the mass extinction once believed to have wiped out many large species, including these ancient crocodiles. Could current assumptions about that extinction event be incomplete? And might other species have survived the catastrophic environmental changes of the time, continuing to evolve in hidden corners of the Earth? Scientists now need to re-examine geological history and ancient ecosystems to better understand what truly happened at the end of the Jurassic period and during the major ecological shifts that followed. This discovery is not only a significant milestone in paleontology, it also opens new avenues for research. With support from the National Geographic Society's Committee for Research and Exploration, the team excavated bone fragments of Machimosaurus rex from sediment layers just about 4 inches below the surface at the edge of the Sahara Desert. The site was once a lagoon facing the sea, which explains why researchers also found fish and turtle bones in the same area. Machimosaurus rex was not simply a gigantic animal of impressive size. It represents a golden age of prehistoric aquatic predators. And discoveries like this remind us just how diverse and how mysterious the ancient animal world truly was, much of which we have yet to fully uncover. Mass grave with 30 sets of remains from the 15th century. During excavations at the ancient city of Chan Chan, located about 310 miles north of Lima, Peru, archaeologists uncovered a 15th century mass grave containing the remains of approximately 25 to 30 individuals. This unexpected discovery provides valuable insight into the lives and customs of the Chimu people, a powerful civilization that once dominated Peru's northern coastline before being conquered by the Inca. Notably, most of the remains belong to women and children, with the majority being women under the age of 30. The individuals were buried alongside tens of thousands of ceramic vessels and other artifacts, including needles, thread, and textile tools. Evidence of weaving, one of the most important crafts in Chimu society. These artifacts suggest that the tomb may have served as the final resting place of elite members of Chimu society, individuals who played significant roles in the development of their civilization. The tomb measures approximately 10 feet by 10 feet and shows clear signs of careful preparation as a burial site. However, according to archaeologist Jorge Menese, although the Chimu practiced human sacrifice, there is no clear evidence indicating that this was a sacrificial burial. This raises important questions about the purpose and circumstances of the interment, requiring further detailed study. To determine the cause of death of those buried in the grave, specialists have conducted tests and analyses on each set of remains. This investigation is crucial in answering whether these individuals were victims of ritual sacrifice or simply members of Chimu society who died of natural causes and were buried with honor. Chanchan, where the mass grave was discovered, was the principal city of the Chimu civilization. Its name means radiant sun in the Chimu language. The city flourished from around AD 900 until 1450 along Peru's northern coast before falling to the Inca. Covering an area of roughly 8 square miles, Chanchan contained 10 palaces surrounded by protective walls. At its height, the city was home to approximately 30,000 people. It served not only as an administrative center, but also as a symbol of the power and prosperity of the Chimu civilization. Due to its exceptional archaeological significance, Chanchan was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1986. However, over time, environmental factors and natural deterioration have placed the ancient city at risk, making preservation efforts more urgent than ever. Experts are currently working to implement conservation measures to safeguard this invaluable heritage site for future generations. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the mass grave discovered at Chanchan stands as vivid evidence of the development and enduring mysteries of the Chimu civilization. It helps us better understand the customs, beliefs, and ways of life of one of the great pre-Inca civilizations, because this site continues to reveal an extraordinary number of fascinating secrets. Hundreds of remains forgotten for centuries beneath a Paris supermarket. Can you believe that directly beneath a place where people shop for vegetables every day in Paris, there once existed an ancient cemetery holding hundreds of burials? It may sound unbelievable, but it is entirely true. The discovery occurred when the Monoprix grocery supermarket began renovation work on its premises. What seemed like ordinary digging into an old foundation soon revealed something far more extraordinary. Layers of soil giving way to fragments of human bones. Not just one or two skeletons, but hundreds of sets of remains lying directly beneath the supermarket floor in the heart of the French capital. The site once belonged to the cemetery of the former Trinity Hospital. This cemetery operated from the 12th century through the 17th century. For several hundred years, countless individuals were laid to rest there. Over time, the hospital closed, the cemetery ceased operations, and Paris continued to expand, build, and modernize. Yet few could have imagined that this past still rested silently beneath layers of modern concrete. As soon as the remains were discovered, researchers and archaeologists arrived at the scene. They conducted radiocarbon dating to determine the age of the burials and carried out DNA testing to better understand when and how these individuals died. The results were chilling. All of these people appeared to have died at roughly the same time. Based on how the bodies were arranged, experts determined that these were not hastily dug graves created in panic. On the contrary, the bodies were not carelessly thrown in. They were carefully and systematically placed. Men, women, and children were aligned in the same head-to-toe direction, maximizing the available space in each grave. Imagine that. Amid a time of crisis, someone remained calm enough to arrange each body with such care. Does that not suggest an organized communal burial rather than a chaotic emergency disposal? During the period when Trinity Hospital was still in operation, Paris endured several major epidemics, particularly smallpox outbreaks in the 17th century. These public health disasters are believed to have caused the simultaneous deaths of many individuals within a short time frame. As disease spread rapidly and the death toll surged, mass graves became a necessary solution. At the excavation site, archaeologists uncovered a total of 8 mass graves within an area of approximately 1,076 square feet. One large grave contained more than 150 sets of remains, while the other 7 held between 5 and 20 individuals each. Even more striking, some clusters of skeletons suggest that entire families were buried together. This not only reflects the devastating impact of the epidemic, but also paints a poignant picture of families swept away by the same historical tragedy. Archaeologists also noted that centuries ago, when the hospital cemetery ceased operations, most of the remains were relocated to the catacombs of Paris, the city's famous underground ossuary. However, the relocation process was not carried out completely, and a significant number of remains were left behind underground, where they remained undisturbed until now. Amid the glittering lights and bustling boulevards of modern Paris, the story beneath the Monoprix supermarket reminds us that the city is built not only of stone and concrete, but also upon layers of memory accumulated across generations. You see, history is not always found in museums or textbooks. Sometimes it lies quietly hidden beneath our feet, waiting to be uncovered. Fascinating, isn't it? The 2,800-year-old remains of an ancient princess. Some stories seem as though they exist only in legend, yet they are discovered in real life, beneath the soil of a construction site. Proof of this came when workers were grading land for the Plaine de l'Ain Industrial Park near Saint-Volbas, about 20 miles from the city of Lyon, France. With every scoop of earth they lifted, they unknowingly brought a 2,800-year-old piece of history back into the light. A team of experts from France's National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research quickly arrived after unusual traces were detected underground. In the stillness of the excavation site, they uncovered skeletal remains believed to belong to an ancient princess. The woman had been buried in a rectangular oak coffin placed inside a grave, measuring approximately 9.5 feet long and 3.3 feet wide. The size of the burial alone suggests that this was not the resting place of an ordinary person. Accompanying her were numerous valuable pieces of jewelry. Shimmering blue glass bead necklaces and finely crafted pottery were carefully arranged inside the coffin, as though someone wished to carry earthly beauty into the afterlife. On her wrists, archaeologists found bracelets made of blue glass beads and decorated copper beads. Every small detail reflects both the craftsmanship of the artisans and the elevated status of the woman who wore them. The discoveries did not stop there. Researchers also found a copper alloy clasp about 2 inches wide. From this detail, they inferred that the woman once wore a leather belt, an accessory that likely served not only decorative purposes, but also symbolized authority and elite status at the time. Just imagine it. Nearly 3 millennia ago, people were already combining metal, glass, and leather to create such refined and luxurious attire. What does that tell us? Inside the grave, fragments of pelvic bones, a femur, part of the skull, and the sacrum were also recovered, allowing specialists to conduct deeper studies on her age and health condition. Notably, this was not the only burial in the area. A total of 3 individuals were interred at the site around the 8th century BC, during the transition from the late Bronze Age into the early Iron Age. Archaeologists believe those buried in the cemetery may have belonged to the Hallstatt culture, a civilization once prominent in southeastern France. This culture was known for its finely crafted artifacts, advanced agricultural practices, and exceptional metalworking skills. Such development enabled them to build prosperous communities with clearly defined social hierarchies. Around 800 BC, this region lay along important trade routes where copper, tin, and iron were widely exchanged, connecting local communities to the Mediterranean world. This thriving trade brought not only wealth, but also new ideas, technologies, and lifestyles. During the same period, many hilltop fortresses were constructed with strong walls and defensive ditches to protect communities from hostile tribes. All of these elements come together to form a vivid picture of the world in which this princess once lived. She was not merely a woman buried with precious jewelry. She may well have been a member of the ruling class in a society that was rapidly rising during a time of transformation. Just think, a modern construction site accidentally awakened a story that had slept for 2,800 years. Isn't that truly remarkable? The 700,000-year-old remains in an Iranian cave are rewriting human history. What would you think if a tiny bone fragment buried deep inside a cave could push back the timeline of human history by hundreds of thousands of years? It sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? Yet this is a real story unfolding in northern Iran. In a little-known cave called Kale Kurd Cave, Near the city of Avaj in Qazvin province, Iran, archaeologists have discovered human remains that may date back as far as 700,000 years. Yes, 700,000 years. You heard that correctly. If this dating is fully confirmed, it would represent the oldest evidence ever recorded of human presence on the Iranian plateau, and one of the most ancient traces of humanity in all of West Asia. Pause for a moment and consider this. 700,000 years ago was a time long before the appearance of Neanderthals, and even before many regions of the world show clear evidence of ancient human habitation. The excavation is being led by Iranian archaeologist Hamid Vadatinasab, together with French archaeologist Dr. Gilles Brayon. The remains were found approximately 5 feet beneath layers of soil and rock at the bottom of the cave. This depth suggests they had rested there through countless layers of sediment accumulating over time, as if nature itself had shielded this secret from disturbance. Notably, the discovery was not limited to human bones. In the same sediment layer, researchers also found stone tools and animal bones. What does that imply? It indicates this site was once a place of habitation and hunting for prehistoric humans. They did not merely pass through. They stayed, crafted tools, hunted, and possibly even built fires inside this cave. This discovery is especially significant because earlier studies at the same site had dated artifacts to just over 452,000 years ago. That means if the 700,000-year estimate is verified, the timeline of human occupation in this region would need to be pushed back by nearly 250,000 years. In archaeology, that is not a small adjustment. It is a monumental leap. Do you realize what this could mean? The Iranian plateau has long been considered an important corridor in humanity's migration from Africa into Eurasia. If humans were present here this early, the region's role in evolutionary history may be even greater than previously believed. Of course, scientists are continuing their analyses to determine the precise age of the remains. Modern dating methods will be applied, from stratigraphic analysis to advanced radiometric techniques. Yet even the possibility of a 700,000-year date is enough to capture the attention of the global scientific community. In the darkness of Kala Kurd Cave, each bone fragment and each stone tool seems to tell the story of the early humans who once sheltered there. Who were they? Which Homo species did they belong to? How did they adapt to the harsh climate of that era? Discoveries like this may help redraw the picture of humanity's origins and migration. And perhaps deeper beneath those layers of soil and rock, more evidence still lies waiting to be uncovered, pieces that could reshape how we understand ourselves. It is entirely possible, isn't it? After all, our world remains filled with mysteries that we modern humans are still not fully capable of explaining. The Saltmen mummy, thousands of years old, yet skin and hair still intact. There are places where a single strike of a pickaxe can bring history bursting into view. The story in northwestern Iran, near the village of Hamzalu, is one of those places. Here lies what once seemed to be an ordinary salt mine. Yet it has preserved human beings who slept for thousands of years beneath layers of white crystal. This is the Cherabad salt mine, where salt was not only used to season food, but became time's cold and silent embalmer. Cherabad is located about 47 miles northwest of the city of Zanjan, at an elevation of approximately 4,430 feet above sea level. The area is part of a massive salt dome formed during the Miocene epoch, between 5 and 23 million years ago. Salt rock, gypsum, clay, all combined to create a unique geological structure. For centuries, local people mined salt here, from the time of the Achaemenid Empire through the Sasanian Empire and into later Islamic periods. But in 1993, everything changed. At the Duzlak mine near Cherabad, miners unexpectedly uncovered a human head protruding from the salt. Not a scattered skeleton, but a mummy with hair and a mustache still intact, and most strikingly, a gold earring that retained its brilliant shine. The remains were dated to around 300 AD. Immediately, authorities in Tehran ordered all mining operations to stop and dispatched a scientific team to the site. Imagine that moment, a face from the distant past staring back at us through hardened salt. It must have been an unsettling sight, wouldn't you agree? As excavations continued, archaeologists uncovered more. A leg still wearing a perfectly preserved leather boot, 3 iron knives, wool garments, a silver needle, rope, leather cords, a whetstone, walnuts, pottery fragments, and woven textiles. These artifacts reveal the daily working life inside an ancient mine. In 2004, another body was discovered. Over the next 6 years, 4 more salt men were found. In total, at least 8 individuals have been identified at the site. Most date back about 2,200 years, to the period of Achaemenid rule. Archaeologists believe they were miners who likely died in at least 3 separate cave-in accidents. Yet each salt man tells a different story. The first discovered individual had blood type B+. A 3D scan of his skull revealed fractures around the eye sockets, evidence of a severe blow before death. His impressive clothing, leather boots, and gold earring suggest he was not poor. So why was someone of apparent status working inside a mine? The fourth salt man was a 16-year-old boy, crushed inside a narrow tunnel. He is also the best preserved of all. Meanwhile, the fifth salt man showed signs of parasitic infection, indicating he had consumed raw or undercooked meat. This marks the first documented case of this type of parasite found in ancient Iran. Today, 5 of the 6 recovered mummies are displayed at the Zanjan Archaeology Museum and the National Museum of Iran in Tehran. One body remains in the mine because it is too fragile to be moved. Remarkably, the oldest human remains found in the area may date back to around 9,550 BC, suggesting that Cherabad contains even deeper layers of history yet to be uncovered. From 2010 to 2017, with support from the German Research Foundation and collaboration from Ruhr University Bochum, the German Mining Museum in Bochum, and Iranian research institutes, large-scale excavations shed light on ancient salt mining technology. Since 2021, a restoration project led by Nargis of Zalapur has continued cleaning, stabilizing, and preserving each fragment using chemical treatments, digital microscopy, and advanced imaging techniques. Notably, a research team from the University of Zurich conducted X-ray and CT scan analyses, partially reconstructing the faces of the salt men. Dr. Lena Orstrom has stated that these are the only known naturally preserved salt mummies from ancient Persia in the world. The salt drew moisture out of their bodies, freezing their final moments and preserving them across millennia. What do you think? Knowing that beneath those layers of earth and stone, more individuals may still be waiting to be found? Cherabad is not just a salt mine. It is a silent cemetery where time itself has been trapped within each white crystal. It is unsettling, isn't it? The 6,200-year-old remains of an Iranian girl with an alien skull, a cultural tragedy on the shores of the Persian Gulf. Have you ever seen an ancient skull and immediately thought of the image of an alien from a science fiction movie? This time, however, it is not a cinematic prop. It is a real set of human remains. Those of a young girl who lived 6,200 years ago, recently excavated by Iranian archaeologists along the shores of the Persian Gulf. These remains tell not just one story, but 2 at the same time, one about cultural identity and another about a haunting death. The girl may have been under 20 years old when she died. What immediately caught researchers' attention was her unusually elongated, oval-shaped skull that protruded toward the back. According to an analysis published in the International Journal of Osteoarchaeology, the research team led by prehistoric archaeologist Mahdi Alirezazadeh of Tarbiyat Modaris University confirmed that this distinctive shape was not the result of mutation or disease. It was the outcome of an ancient practice known as cranial modification. From early childhood, her head had been tightly bound for years to force the skull bones to grow into a desired shape. This form of body modification appeared in many ancient societies across Eurasia and beyond. In those cultures, an elongated skull could symbolize status, beauty, or community identity. But the story does not end there. Scientists discovered that her skull bore a large fracture, likely caused by impact from a broad, blunt object. What is unsettling is that the injury shows no signs of healing, no evidence of bone regeneration. This means she did not survive long after the blow. However, there is no direct evidence proving intentional violence. It could have been an accident, or it could have been an act of aggression. The truth has been buried by time. The fact that her skull had been reshaped since childhood may have weakened its structure, making it more vulnerable to severe trauma. And this raises a troubling question. What is the cost of body art? Why would a community maintain a custom that could make an individual more physically vulnerable? It is difficult to draw firm conclusions. What we do know is that this discovery is part of the Zore Prehistoric Project, an excavation program spanning more than a decade at the foothills of the Zagros Mountains along the Persian Gulf in Iran. The area where the girl was found is the ancient cemetery of Chega Sofla, home to the oldest known brick tombs in the region. Notably, Chega Sofla contains not only individual burials, but also collective family graves, along with evidence of an emerging urban culture. Archaeologists have uncovered temple remains, residential structures, and even early signs of writing. This means the girl did not live in a small, isolated tribe. She belonged to a community entering a more complex stage of development with a clearly organized social structure. Consider this: a society sophisticated enough to construct brick tombs, develop urban settlements, and show early evidence of writing, yet one that also practiced extreme forms of body modification. What does that tell us? That civilization and traditional belief systems can coexist side by side? Or that there is still a deeper secret we have yet to uncover? Did the young girl feel pride in the shape of her skull? Or was it simply a decision imposed on her by adults before she was old enough to understand? And that final blow, was it a tragic accident or the mark of another kind of tragedy? Do you have any answers to these questions? If so, don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments section below this video. The 2,800-year-old remain found in a strange position reveal an ancient love story that still commands our respect. Some love stories need no vows, no wedding rings, just a final moment powerful enough to travel across thousands of years. The discovery made in 1972 stands as striking proof of that. That year, amid the ashes of a once thriving city reduced to ruins, archaeologists fell silent when they uncovered two skeletons lying face to face, lips touching as if sharing one last goodbye kiss. The discovery took place at the excavation site of Tepe Hassanlu, in the Solduz Valley of West Azerbaijan Province, Iran. From that moment on, the world came to know them by a deeply moving name: the Lovers. To fully understand their story, we must return to the setting of ancient Hassanlu. It was once a bustling city in northwestern Iran until it was destroyed in a violent attack during conflicts between rival factions. The fire spread so rapidly and unexpectedly that many residents had no chance to escape. When archaeologists excavated the site, they found layers of blackened debris covering the entire area, as though time had frozen at the exact moment the tragedy unfolded. The two skeletons were discovered inside an empty bin made of plaster, likely used as a temporary hiding place for combatants or civilians fleeing the chaos. There was no gold, no weapons, no burial offerings. The only object found besides their bodies was a stone slab placed beneath the head of the skeleton on the left. That very emptiness made their position all the more striking. One skeleton lay slightly on its side, with an arm gently resting on the face of the other, as if trying to hold on to a final breath amid suffocating smoke. At first, some reports suggested that both individuals were male, raising speculation about a same-sex relationship or perhaps a bond between brothers. However, according to the book Culture and Social Institutions in Ancient Iran, authored by Mohammad A. Dandamayev, Vladimir G. Lukonin, and Philip L. Cole, and published by Cambridge University Press, the two skeletons were identified as a male and a female, with the woman positioned on the left. Later osteological studies further supported this conclusion, making the love story even more vivid. Some observers noticed a hole in the male skeleton's skull and speculated that it might have been a fatal wound. However, archaeologists clarified that the damage occurred during excavation, not before death. This strongly suggests that the couple most likely died from smoke inhalation as the city burned. They had climbed into the container to hide, but were ultimately overtaken by smoke and flames. In their final moments, they turned toward each other and embraced. Tepe Hassanlu is no ordinary archaeological site. It was excavated over 10 seasons, from 1956 to 1974, by researchers from the University of Pennsylvania and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Among the many important discoveries at Hassanlu, this couple remains one of the most emotionally powerful. After the photograph was released, the University of Pennsylvania Museum simply and poignantly referred to them as the Lovers. Some sources once claimed that they had lain there for 6,000 years. In reality, scientific analysis dates the two skeletons to around 800 BC, or approximately 2,800 years ago. While that number is smaller than the rumor suggested, it is still long enough for a single kiss to become a timeless symbol. What compels scientists, and all of us today, to reflect is not merely their age, but the emotion preserved in their posture. Amid the smoke and chaos of war, facing imminent death, they did not scatter in panic. They found each other. Could it be that thousands of years ago, people already loved and pledged themselves to one another, just as we do today? And perhaps that final moment caused time itself to hesitate, so that 2,800 years later, future generations could still witness proof of enduring love. If I were to say that amid the ashes of Hassanlu, that kiss is more than an archaeological trace, that it is a reminder that no matter how brutal war or disaster may be, human emotion endures, glowing like embers beneath the dust of time, would that be an exaggeration? The secret medieval shelter tunnel. Beneath layers of earth that seem to have rested undisturbed for hundreds of years, a secret stretching nearly 11 miles has just been brought back to light. It is not a treasure vault of gold and silver, nor a magnificent palace, but an entire underground tunnel system running beneath the ancient city of Balkis, also known as Old Belkis, in North Khorasan province, Iran. Just hearing that is enough to send chills down your spine, isn't it? A city above ground, and a hidden shadow city below. This discovery was made by specialists from Iran's Ministry of Antiquities during excavations at the Balkis archaeological site. At first, they were conducting a routine survey, but as they dug deeper, unusual structures began to emerge. Gradually, sections of walls and narrow passageways came into view, connecting to form a network extending nearly 11 miles. That is no small number considering the construction techniques available during the Middle Ages. Preliminary assessments suggest the tunnel dates back to the Seljuk period, possibly even earlier. Inside, archaeologists found pottery fragments believed to belong to the Seljuk era, helping to confirm the time frame of the structure. Though small, these ceramic pieces act like signatures from the past, confirming that people once actively used this space. What surprised many people even more was the discovery of a bathhouse within the tunnel system. Imagine that. Deep underground, in darkness, there existed a fully developed living space. However, experts believe this bathhouse may never have been used. It may have been constructed as a precautionary measure, or perhaps the entire project was never fully completed before it was eventually abandoned and forgotten. So what was the true purpose of this tunnel system? Researchers believe it was not meant for permanent residence, but as an emergency shelter. In the turbulent Middle Ages, invasions and warfare were frequent. The people of the city needed a way to protect their lives. This underground network is thought to have served as a refuge for women, children, and the elderly when foreign invaders attacked. Picture the scene centuries ago. As the sound of galloping horses and clashing weapons echoed above ground, the most vulnerable quietly descended beneath the earth, hiding within a dark labyrinth, waiting for the storm of war to pass. The more you think about it, the more impressive the ingenuity of those who built it becomes. Constructing an underground system nearly 11 miles long was not something accomplished overnight. It required careful planning in terms of structural integrity, ventilation, and load-bearing capacity. Given the limited tools of the time, digging deep and maintaining the stability of such an extensive network would have been extraordinarily challenging. This suggests that the city of Balkis once held significant importance and possessed the resources necessary to undertake such a large-scale project. At present, experts say a much larger archaeological excavation will be needed to uncover all the secrets still hidden within. The nearly 11-mile length is only an initial estimate. Who knows how many additional chambers, passageways, or artifacts remain untouched in the darkness? Every yard of soil removed could reveal another missing piece of history. Balkis has long been known as a historic city with ancient walls and architecture, but now it is what lies beneath the ground that leaves people astonished. A city existing on two levels simultaneously, one for daily life and another for moments of life and death. You see, history is not always found in what we can see. Sometimes it lies hidden beneath our very footsteps. Do you think that under seemingly ordinary land around the world, there may still be other shadow cities waiting for the day their stories are told? I believe there are. Ancient tomb filled with gold and precious stones of a powerful young woman from ancient Khorasan. In northeastern Iran, amid the arid landscape of North Khorasan province, archaeologists have uncovered a discovery that has drawn serious attention from scholars. A lavish tomb belonging to a young woman who lived more than 3,000 years ago, when this region was part of the greater Khorasan civilization. The young woman died at around 18 years of age. There are no clear signs of violence, and she most likely passed away from natural causes. Yet what astonishes researchers is not her death, but the way she was laid to rest. According to a study published in the journal Iran, the rich grave goods, especially the gold jewelry, indicate that she came from a wealthy and high-status family. The tomb was discovered at the archaeological site of Tepe Chalo, an important location in North Khorasan. Archaeologist Ali Vadadi, the study's lead author from Iran's Ministry of Cultural Heritage, stated that this is one of the richest tombs ever found from the Great Khorasan civilization. Imagine the moment when archaeologists carefully brushed away layers of soil, and before them appeared a rectangular black stone box made from the rare mineral chlorite. Carved onto its surface were images of snakes and scorpions, symbols rich with meaning. The box is believed to have held cosmetics, possibly kohl, the ancient black powder used as eyeliner. But why were snakes and scorpions carved onto it? According to researchers, they may have served a ritual or protective purpose, functioning as a kind of talisman accompanying her into the afterlife. Interestingly, a nearly identical box was previously discovered in the region of ancient Bactria, an area that today includes parts of Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. This suggests that her community was far from isolated. They maintained trade and cultural connections with distant lands. The burial has been designated Grave Number 12. Although the exact dating is still under study, scientists believe the young woman was buried toward the end of the 3rd millennium BC. She was placed in a flexed position, lying on her right side with her face oriented southeast, in accordance with burial traditions at Tepe Chalo. Alongside the finely crafted cosmetic box were 2 gold earrings, a gold ring, several ivory and bronze hairpins, a bronze mirror, pottery vessels, and notably, a bronze seal engraved with the image of a human foot. Similar seals have been discovered at Bronze Age sites in southern Iran. According to Ali Vadadi, the presence of multiple seals in the grave suggests that this woman held an active role and a certain status within her community. Have you noticed the details about the ivory and lapis lazuli beads? These materials were not locally available. Their presence indicates long-distance trade routes connecting Khorasan with what is now Afghanistan and even the Indus Valley. This means that more than 3,000 years ago, this region was already part of an extensive trade network. Yet what makes this story especially poignant is her age. She was only 18, too young to have independently built significant power or social standing. For this reason, Ali Vadadi suggests she likely inherited her wealth and status from her family. She may have been the daughter of an influential lineage, perhaps an important figure within marriage alliances or political networks of the time. A young woman buried with gold, cosmetics, a mirror, and protective symbols. What kind of life do you think she lived? Did she know that more than 3 millennia later, people would still be speaking about her? It is difficult to say. But as you can see, beneath the soil of Tepe Chalo, this tomb reveals not only the wealth of an individual, but also reflects an entire civilization that once flourished and then quietly faded into the passage of time. Ancient rock relief depicting a Persian king discovered. Amid the arid lands of Iran, where desert winds sweep across ancient ruins, a new discovery has stirred excitement within the archaeological community. On the rock face of Istakhr, an ancient carving has unexpectedly come to light, and it is believed to portray a Persian king from the Sasanian era. Just hearing that sends a chill down your spine, doesn't it? A royal face, asleep for thousands of years, now emerging from stone as if ready to continue its unfinished story. The relief is far more than a simple human figure. The king is distinguished by his characteristic crown, the ultimate symbol of power in ancient Persian culture. Surrounding him are richly symbolic motifs: the moon, a star, and an elaborately decorated crown. Each deeply incised line seems to assert the supreme status of this figure. Looking at it, one can almost sense the lingering aura of royal authority still hovering among the barren hills. According to archaeologist and historian Abolhassan Atabaki, the design details closely reflect the crown styles of the later Sasanian rulers. This is not mere speculation. He also cites a 10th century AD account by the Arab historian al-Masudi. In his writings, al-Masudi described a manuscript discovered at Istakhar that contained illustrations of Sasanian kings. Isn't that connection fascinating? A manuscript recorded more than 1,000 years ago, and now a rock carving appears to confirm that very account. Atabaki further notes that the carving style on this rock face bears clear similarities to some of the earliest stone reliefs discovered in the Persepolis region. For those unfamiliar, Persepolis was once the magnificent capital of ancient Persian empires, renowned for its refined sculptural art and powerful royal symbolism. When these artistic styles are compared, researchers observe a clear continuity in the visual expression of kingship. This strengthens the evidence that the Sasanian royal presence in this area was both significant and enduring. And Istakhar itself is no obscure location lost in the desert. This ancient city once served as a royal residence for Sasanian kings. Situated near Persepolis, Istakhar still preserves the remains of grand palaces, formidable fortifications, and sacred temples. Every stone here seems infused with traces of power and tradition. This new discovery is like a missing puzzle piece, making the historical picture of Istakhar clearer than ever. Imagine it. In the stillness of Rocky Mountains, a king carved with a magnificent crown, accompanied by the moon and star, symbols closely associated with divine mandate and celestial authority. What does that suggest? Did the ancients intend to convey that the king's power came not only from the earthly realm, but was also sanctioned by the heavens? It is difficult to say for certain, but as you can see, such details give the relief not only artistic value, but also profound political and spiritual meaning. So if I were to say that this discovery is more than the simple finding of an ancient carving, that it reinforces Istakhar's importance as a center of power and artistic tradition during the Sasanian dynasty, that would not be an exaggeration. At the same time, it raises new questions. How many other carvings remain hidden along the surrounding rock faces? And could it be that the stories of Persian royalty are still waiting to be awakened? Ancient Observatory, inside Alamut Castle. Amid the sheer cliffs of northern Iran stands a castle that once struck fear across the medieval world. Yet few would imagine that inside this famous fortress, long associated with warfare and political intrigue, there may have existed a structure aimed directly at the sky, an ancient observatory. That fortress is Alamut Castle. Recently, archaeologists working at Alamut uncovered the ruins of a remarkable structure believed to have been built in the 13th century, possibly as an observational stronghold. What makes this discovery truly striking is not just the surviving stone remains, but the name connected to it. Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, one of the greatest Persian scholars of the medieval era. Imagine this for a moment. Perched atop a mountain in a castle that once served as the power center of the Ismailites, there may have been a space dedicated to observing the stars. It sounds contradictory, doesn't it? On one side, politics and religion. On the other, science and astronomy. Yet history often intertwines in unexpected ways. According to Hamide Chubak, director of the Alamut Research Center, the archaeological team discovered 3 walls opening toward the south, the direction where stars first shine most clearly as night falls. She noted that the overall structure of the castle contains several features suggesting it may once have been used for astronomical observation. The orientation of the walls appears deliberate, not accidental. Moreover, astronomical instruments have been found within the castle grounds. These artifacts serve as crucial pieces of evidence, completing the picture that Alamut was not merely a military fortress, but may also have functioned as a center of scientific study. When all the evidence is considered together, the south-facing design, the high elevation ideal for observing the sky, the astronomical tools discovered on-site, and the fact that Nasir al-Din al-Tusi lived and conducted research at Alamut for many years, archaeologists believe there is strong reason to conclude that he may have established an observatory there. Even more intriguing, Hamide Chubak suggests that the structure at Alamut may have served as the conceptual foundation for the later construction of the Maraghe Observatory. The Maraghe Observatory was regarded as one of the largest astronomical centers in the Islamic world at the time. In other words, Alamut may have been the original blueprint, the place where the first ideas were formed before being developed into a much larger institution. Nasir al-Din al-Tusi was not only an astronomer, he was also a mathematician, philosopher, and distinguished scholar who lived from 1201 to 1274. For 26 years, he conducted research at Alamut and other Ismailite castles. The Ismailites were a Shiite sect active from the 9th to the 13th century, with branches such as the Fatimids, the Karamita, and the historically renowned Assassins. History took a dramatic turn in 1256 when Alamut Castle fell to Hulagu Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. After this event, Nasir al-Din al-Tusi agreed to become a scientific advisor to the Mongols, a controversial decision, yet one that allowed him to continue advancing science within a new political reality. Isn't that fascinating? A castle once associated with legendary assassins may also have been a birthplace of planetary observations. A philosopher living amid the turbulence of war still lifted his eyes toward the heavens, seeking the laws of the universe. Perhaps it was precisely this intersection of power, religion, and science that has made Alamut one of the most mysterious sites in Iran's history. 8,000-year-old bone flute in the Iranian desert. Amid the arid land where desert winds blow relentlessly year-round, there is a sound that seemed to have been buried forever beneath the dust of time. Not the thunder of hooves along the Silk Road, nor the clash of weapons from empires that once passed through, but a simple melody rising from a piece of bone. And what sends a chill down the spine is this: it has endured for 8,000 years. In northeastern Iran, the city of Shahrud lies quietly within Semnan province, known for its diverse landscapes, ancient ruins, and its close connection to the legendary Silk Road. Few would suspect that this land also conceals a musical secret even older than the merchant caravans that once crossed its deserts. That secret is a Neolithic settlement called Sangay Chakmak, meaning Flint Hill, one of Iran's most significant archaeological sites. When experts from the National Museum of Iran conducted excavations at the mound, they expected to find stone tools and remnants of ancient dwellings. What made the entire team pause, however, was a small, delicate, yet deeply mysterious object, a flute made entirely from animal bone, determined to be approximately 8,000 years old. 8 millennia ago, when humans lived in early communities without writing to record their thoughts and without musical notation written on paper, they were already crafting musical instruments. Remarkable, isn't it? This was not simply a hollow bone blown at random. The flute was crafted with such precision that modern researchers have expressed genuine admiration. Further analysis shows it was made from the bone of a large migratory bird, a type of bone long and hollow enough to produce a resonant sound. The instrument has a distinctive structure: 4 primary finger holes running along the body and an additional hole near the mouthpiece. This detail is far from accidental. It indicates that prehistoric people understood how to adjust pitch, control sound, and intentionally create melodies. This was not the product of chance, but the result of thoughtful experimentation and impressive craftsmanship. Dr. Biglari of the National Museum of Iran suggests that the bone flute at Sangay Chakmak may have served multiple purposes in early society. It may have sounded during spiritual rituals, where people expressed their beliefs in the supernatural. It may have been played at community gatherings, as members of a tribe sat together around a fire. It could even have had practical uses, such as herding livestock or signaling across long distances over open plains. Hearing this, you might wonder, what did it sound like? Deep and warm? High and piercing? Gentle like a passing breeze? Or sharp like a bird's call? We may never know the exact melody that echoed 8,000 years ago, yet the very existence of this flute tells a much larger story, a story of the desire to express emotion, the need for connection, and the creative instinct embedded in humanity since the dawn of time. In the dry desert of Shahrud, beneath the soil of Sangay Chakmak, that bone flute is like a whisper from the past. It reminds us that before empires, before war, before trade, human beings were already listening and already making music. A small piece of bone carrying within it an entire symphony of human history. Quite impressive, isn't it? The 1,500-year-old remains of a Maya queen found inside a pyramid in Guatemala. Inside a mysterious pyramid deep within the dense jungles of Guatemala, where towering ancient trees block out the sky and the constant chorus of insects fills the air day and night, archaeologists have recently uncovered a discovery that has left the entire research community stunned. It is the skeleton of a woman believed to have been a Maya queen, dating back approximately 1,500 years. At first, that number may simply sound like a distant point in time, but when you truly think about it, it represents an entire dynasty, an entire life of power that once existed before, slowly fading into obscurity. So far, the woman's exact identity remains unknown. Who was she? Was her name once carved into stone monuments or recorded in ancient inscriptions? For now, those questions remain unanswered. Yet the research team believes strongly that she was indeed a queen. And why are they so confident about that? The answer lies in the burial location and the objects placed alongside her. Her tomb was discovered within a complex of 3 pyramids located on the outskirts of the ancient city of Huitzna, in Guatemala's Holma region. The 3 pyramids still rise dramatically from the jungle, as if they continue to guard secrets that have been hidden for more than 1,000 years. Being buried in such a prestigious location suggests that this woman could not have been an ordinary person. In ancient Maya society, where status and authority were clearly reflected in funeral rituals, only individuals of the highest rank were laid to rest in sacred and monumental places like this. But the discoveries did not stop there. While excavating a nearby watchtower, scientists also uncovered the remains of children who are believed to have been sacrificed. This detail makes the picture of the past appear both magnificent and chilling at the same time. Ritual sacrifice was once an important part of Maya spiritual life, and its presence here suggests that this complex played a significant role within the political and religious structure of the time. Yet one smaller discovery turned out to provide an extraordinary amount of information. Archaeologists found finely crafted ceramic vessels that were used to hold chocolate, a precious beverage in Maya civilization. On one of these containers, there was an inscription describing the name of the king who owned it. At first glance, it might seem like a simple object, just a chocolate container, right? But from that seemingly ordinary artifact, researchers were able to gather a remarkable amount of information. They could trace the identity of the vessel's owner, learn more about family relationships, and even estimate when this person may have died. From just a single inscription carved into pottery, an entire network of information about a royal dynasty, bloodlines, and historical connections began to emerge. As archaeologists themselves have explained, it is truly incredible how much knowledge can be uncovered from something as simple as this object. But this discovery raises an even more intriguing question. If a queen was buried within this complex, could the remains of a king still be hidden somewhere among those 3 pyramids? That question has made the excavation more exciting than ever. Perhaps beneath the tangled roots, layers of soil, and ancient stones, there is still an undiscovered tomb waiting to be found. A resting place where a Maya king lies quietly, patiently waiting for humanity to become curious and determined enough to uncover the truth. What do you think? 800 skeletons and 1,200-year-old mystery on the summit of the Himalayas. At an elevation of more than 16,500 feet above sea level, there is a place whose very name can send chills down your spine. Yes, this is Rupkund Lake, also known as the Skeleton Lake, located in the state of Uttarakhand, India. This small lake sits quietly beneath the majestic Trisol mountain range in the Himalayas, and for most of the year it remains almost completely covered in snow and ice. To reach this remote location, travelers must hike for about 5 days through rugged mountain terrain. Yet it was in this isolated place that one of the most chilling mysteries of the 20th century was accidentally revealed. The story began in the summer of 1942, during the height of World War II. An Indian forest ranger named Hari Kishan Madhwal was on patrol when he came across a sight he could hardly believe. As the ice began to melt, hundreds of human skeletons and skulls slowly appeared around the lake. Some bodies still had flesh attached to them. The more the ice melted, the more remains emerged from beneath the water. Researchers later estimated that as many as 800 bodies were scattered throughout the area. At that time, British officials who governed India were immediately alarmed. They feared the remains might belong to Japanese soldiers secretly preparing an invasion. However, after careful examination, this theory was quickly dismissed. Soon, other explanations began to emerge. Some suggested that the skeletons belonged to Tibetan traders traveling along the Silk Road, who may have died from disease along their journey. But there was something strange. None of the bones showed signs of illness. Even more puzzling, no weapons, tools, clothing, or personal belongings were found nearby. A group of people that large, if they had died from war or robbery, should have left behind some trace. Local folklore offers a far more spiritual explanation. According to legend, the site was the scene of a terrifying hailstorm sent by the goddess Nanda Devi, a revered deity in Hinduism. The story says that Nanda Devi once left her homeland for a distant kingdom but was treated disrespectfully by the king and queen. Later, when they organized a pilgrimage to seek the goddess's forgiveness, they broke sacred tradition by bringing dancers and musicians along, turning the holy journey into a celebration rather than an act of devotion. Angered by this disrespect, the goddess unleashed a violent snowstorm and deadly hailstorm, destroying the entire group and sweeping them into the lake. According to this belief, the skeletons serve as a warning to anyone who dares to offend the gods. But science does not stop at legends. After a 5-year study, scientists reached a shocking conclusion. The remains at the lake are approximately 1,200 years old. Carbon dating revealed that the people did not die at the same time. Some groups were separated by as much as 1,000 years. Genetic analysis made the mystery even more complex. Among the skeletons, 23 individuals were identified as having ancestry related to modern Indian populations, who died between the 7th and 10th centuries. Meanwhile, 14 skeletons were found to have genetic ties to people from the Greek island of Crete in the Mediterranean. Another skeleton showed Southeast Asian ancestry. This group of 15 individuals is believed to have died between the 17th and 20th centuries, possibly during the same event. They were all healthy adult men and women with no signs of disease. So what could have brought people from India, Greece, and Southeast Asia together at an altitude of more than 16,000 feet in the middle of the Himalayas? Why did they die without leaving behind a single tool or personal item? And perhaps even more troubling, the area today is not strictly protected. Many skeletons have been moved by climbers and hikers, some even taken away as souvenirs. Every action like this may erase an important clue. The deeper researchers dig, the more the mystery grows. Rupkund Lake still lies there quietly among the clouds of the Himalayas, as if guarding a story that humanity still does not have enough pieces to fully understand. And perhaps it is precisely this unfinished story that has made the Skeleton Lake one of the most haunting mysteries in the world, even to this day. 4,000-year-old princess mummy, found in the desert, still strikingly beautiful. In the dry lands of Xinjiang, a region that was once an important part of the legendary Silk Road, history is not found only in books. It also lies sleeping beneath the scorching sands of the desert. For thousands of years, this region served as a crossroads between the East and the West, where merchants, cultures, and mysterious stories all passed through. And right in the middle of this once bustling land over the past several decades, archaeologists from around the world have discovered hundreds of ancient mummies. But do you know what makes these mummies so extraordinary? Unlike the mummies of Egypt, they were not preserved using chemicals. Instead, they were naturally preserved by the extremely dry air and harsh desert climate. As a result, when experts first saw these bodies, having survived for thousands of years yet remaining almost perfectly intact, many were left completely astonished. Among the many archaeological sites in the region, one location has attracted particular attention from researchers: the Xiaohe Cemetery. The story of this site began in 1934, when Swedish archaeologist Folke Bergman arrived in the Lop Nur region to conduct surveys. After days of searching through the vast sea of sand, he discovered an ancient cemetery filled with mysterious coffins. However, at that time, large-scale excavation was not carried out, and the Xiaohe Cemetery was once again swallowed by the desert sands. It was not until 2000 that archaeologists from the Xinjiang Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology launched a large-scale search in the Lop Nur area. Using modern satellite positioning technology, they successfully relocated the long-lost cemetery. 3 years later, in 2003, official excavations finally began. And from that moment on, secrets that had slept for nearly 4,000 years slowly began to emerge. The Xiaohe Cemetery turned out to be much larger than anyone had imagined. Scientists determined that it dates back about 3,500 to 4,000 years, roughly the same period as ancient Chinese dynasties such as the Xia and Shang. In total, 167 tombs were excavated at the site, but among all of them, one burial stood out the most: the tomb of a woman whom scientists later named the Princess of Xiaohe. When archaeologists opened her coffin, the entire team was almost speechless. The mummy was preserved to an unbelievable degree. On her head was a white hat, and her hair was still neatly arranged. Her face had barely been damaged by time. Deep eye sockets, long thick eyelashes, and a high nose bridge. Even the outline of her lips remained clearly visible, and the corners of her mouth seemed to hold a faint smile after thousands of years. Her clothing also drew great curiosity. Around her neck was a red cord necklace decorated with beads, and on her wrist, she wore a bracelet made of tubular jade beads. Her body was wrapped in a large white wool cloak, draped from right to left. 2 carefully carved wooden pins were fastened to the front of the cloak, along with 2 small red willow sticks. On her feet, she still wore a pair of leather boots. When archaeologists opened the cloak, they discovered that the mummy's body was covered with a white substance. Analysis revealed that it was a compound derived from dairy products, which acted as a natural protective layer that helped preserve the body almost perfectly. The princess's coffin was boat-shaped, tightly wrapped in cowhide, and buried deep beneath the sand. Inside the coffin, researchers also found a small amount of cheese. Thanks to the desert's dry and hot climate, the cheese has survived to this day. Experts believe this may have been food buried with the deceased, suggesting that people at that time believed in life after death or rebirth. Based on the artifacts discovered in the tomb, scientists believe the woman once held a high social status. That is why they named her the Princess of Xiaohe, after the place where she was found. But the most surprising twist came later, after DNA testing. The results showed that she was a mixed descendant of both Asian and European ancestry. This discovery proves that thousands of years ago, Xinjiang was already a meeting point of multiple cultures. Later, scientists used computer graphics software to reconstruct the princess's face. When the portrait was revealed, many people were amazed. Her face looked remarkably modern, almost like that of a woman from today's world. Some even believe that when she was alive, she might have been even more beautiful. Just imagine it. In the harsh desert along the Silk Road, a woman lay sleeping for 4,000 years, carrying the bloodlines of 2 continents within her. An ancient princess, yet with a face that looks as though it could belong to someone who just stepped out of the modern world. So the question remains, how many similar stories are still buried beneath the sands of Xinjiang? Personally, I believe there could be many more. It's just that, for now, humanity may not yet have the ability to uncover them all. An Ice Age, woolly rhinoceros, mummy discovered in Siberia. In the frozen lands of Siberia, where winter can last almost the entire year, and the ground remains locked beneath layers of permafrost, a surprising discovery has recently stirred both the scientific community and people online. The discovery happened in August 2024, when gold miners working near a quarry in the Sakha Republic of Russia stumbled upon something they could hardly believe at first. Yes, what they found was the mummified body of an ancient woolly rhinoceros. This was not just a few scattered bones like many other fossils. Instead, the rhinoceros was almost completely intact. Its large horn was still in its original position, and even more astonishing, many parts of the animal's soft tissue had been preserved after tens of thousands of years. When the first images were uploaded to Telegram, they spread across the internet at an incredible speed. From scientists to enthusiasts of natural history, everyone was curious about how such an ancient creature could be preserved so well. Shortly after receiving the news, a research team from Northeastern Federal University quickly arrived at the site. Scientists immediately recovered the rhinoceros's horn so it could be preserved and carefully studied. The rest of the mummy is expected to be excavated gradually over the coming months. Researchers must proceed with extreme caution, because even a small mistake could damage the precious data that nature has protected for tens of thousands of years. In fact, when we look at the bigger picture, Siberia has long been considered a massive natural archive of Earth's history. The region's permafrost acts almost like a gigantic natural freezer. Thanks to the extremely low temperatures, the remains of many ancient animals have been preserved here, from woolly mammoths and cave lions to woolly rhinoceroses. These creatures are almost like being frozen inside a time capsule, allowing scientists to observe details that ordinary fossils usually cannot preserve. What makes this discovery especially remarkable is the fact that soft tissues of the rhinoceros are still present. Because of this, researchers will not only study the skeleton but also investigate the animal's body structure, diet, and even the environment it lived in during the Ice Age. According to Maxim Cheprasov, a senior researcher at the Mammoth Museum of NEFU, this is the 5th time scientists have discovered a woolly rhinoceros with preserved soft tissue. However, he emphasized that this is the first specimen found in such exceptionally good condition. The woolly rhinoceros was once one of the iconic animals of the Pleistocene epoch, a period that lasted from about 2.6 million years ago until roughly 11,700 years ago. During that time, these massive animals lived across the cold regions of northern Europe, Asia, and even North America. However, about 10,000 years ago, the species became extinct, most likely due to climate change combined with hunting pressure from early humans. In the coming months, scientists plan to continue excavating the rest of the rhinoceros mummy in order to determine its age, sex, and physical condition when it was alive. The horn itself will also undergo detailed analysis to help researchers better understand the morphology and development of this ancient rhinoceros species. So here's an interesting question to think about. Do you believe that deep beneath the frozen ground of Siberia, there are still many other time capsules waiting to be discovered one day? Or do you have another thought about this mysterious land? If you do, feel free to share your opinion by leaving a comment below this video. 33 feet giant human skeleton discovered in Romania. Throughout human history, stories about giants have always sparked both curiosity and skepticism. From ancient legends to stories passed down by local communities, the image of human-like beings with enormous size seems to appear in many parts of the world. Some people believe these stories are simply products of imagination. Yet there have also been reports from individuals who claim to have personally seen unusually tall and massive human-like figures. So the question remains, did giants really exist in human history, or are they nothing more than myths? Although no one can answer that question with complete certainty, one of the most controversial stories related to the existence of giants emerged in 1976 during mining operations in the region of Roșia, Montana, Romania. While digging deep underground, workers reportedly discovered a massive skeleton measuring about 33 feet in length, lying inside an ancient tunnel. This tunnel had long been rumored to have connections to the legendary land known as Hyperborea, a mysterious place mentioned in several writings from ancient Greece. According to ancient records, Hyperborea was described as a land located far to the north, inhabited by a people known as the Hyperboreans. Some writings dating back to around 450 BC claim that life there was unlike anywhere else on Earth. The Hyperboreans were said to live extraordinarily long lives, up to 1,000 years. Even more astonishing, a single day in that land was described as lasting as long as an entire year in our world. The people there supposedly lived peacefully, free from war and disease. Their society was said to revolve around music, art, and musical instruments that they created themselves. However, the most fascinating part of the legend involves the giants who were believed to guard that land. According to some accounts, armies from across the Atlantic Ocean once attempted to invade Hyperborea, but they were allegedly stopped by the gigantic allies of the people who lived there. Stories like these have led some to believe that the Hyperboreans, and perhaps giants themselves, might have once truly existed. The existence of Hyperborea has long been debated among historians and scholars. Some theories suggest that the land may have once been located in the Arctic region or in the far northern areas of Asia, such as Siberia or even the northern regions of modern-day China. Meanwhile, French author Robert Charroux proposed a far more unconventional idea. He suggested that the Hyperboreans may have actually been ancient astronauts from another planet. According to his theory, they chose to live in Earth's coldest regions because the climate there resembled the environment of their original home world. Returning to the controversial discovery in Romania, the place where the giant skeleton was allegedly found is known as Tunnel Number 13, located beneath the village of Cornea. Some sources claim that this tunnel may have been constructed around 5,500 years ago by an ancient tribe called the Agathyrsi, but the strange details did not stop with the giant skeleton. During the excavation, when a large tombstone was lifted, those present reportedly discovered the entrance to a hidden underground chamber. The passage had a diameter of about 13 feet and led downward through a spiral staircase. Then something truly bizarre happened. Witnesses claimed that from deep within the chamber, a strange faint purple glow began to emerge, almost like a glowing mist. No one present could determine the source of the mysterious light, At that moment, a linguist who was part of the team decided to descend the staircase to investigate what was hidden below. But the unsettling part of the story is that no one else was brave enough to follow him. According to the story, the man never returned. From that moment on, it is said that those who witnessed the event were required to sign confidentiality agreements, and the discovery in the tunnel was never officially discussed again. So what exactly lies beneath that staircase leading into the underground chamber? To this day, the answer remains unknown. Of course, the story does not end with Roșia, Montana. In other regions of Romania, such as Scieni and the Bușigi Mountains, local residents have also reported discovering unusually large human skeletons measuring more than 8 feet in length, often found alongside ancient pottery fragments. Between the 1940s and 1950s, some excavations were even rumored to have uncovered around 80 skeletons measuring between 13 and 16 feet tall. Then, in 1989, approximately 20 more giant skeletons were reportedly discovered in the Pantelimon area. Yet what makes these stories even more puzzling is that the skeletons later seem to disappear from scientific records. There are very few official documents and no publicly displayed specimens. What remains are mostly oral stories and scattered written accounts, which leads us back to the same haunting question. Did these giant skeletons truly exist? Or are they simply stories that have grown more mysterious with time? And if giants once walked on this earth, where did they go? Do you think you might have an answer to these mysterious questions? 2,300-year-old warship beneath the waters of Egypt. On July 19th, in the deep blue waters near Abu Qir Bay, off the coast of Egypt, archaeologists were stunned when they discovered the wreck of an ancient military ship lying on the seabed, right in the middle of the ruins of the legendary city of Thonis Herakleion. Hearing this, many people might wonder, what kind of place was this city that it attracts so much attention from scientists? In fact, more than 2,000 years ago, Thonis Herakleion was once the busiest seaport in Egypt along the Mediterranean coast. Located at the western mouth of the Nile River, it functioned like a massive gateway of trade. Ships from across the ancient world docked there, goods were exchanged, merchants gathered, and different cultures intersected in this vibrant port city. For centuries, Thonis Herakleion controlled nearly all commercial activity in the surrounding region. But history often changes in unexpected ways. In 331 BC, Alexander the Great ordered the construction of the city of Alexandria nearby. The rise of this new metropolis quickly caused Thonis Herakleion to lose its importance. However, what ultimately caused the city to disappear was not economics or politics, but the overwhelming force of nature. Powerful earthquakes and devastating tsunamis repeatedly struck the Nile Delta region. The land subsided, massive structures collapsed, and eventually the vast port city, along with part of the surrounding plain, was swallowed by the sea. From that moment on, Thonis Herakleion vanished from the map and became almost a legendary story in the history of ancient Egypt. It was not until 2001 that scientists finally discovered traces of this lost city beneath the waters of Abu Qir Bay, near Alexandria, the second largest city in Egypt today. Since then, every underwater excavation has revealed new pieces of the past. One of the most remarkable discoveries occurred during a recent survey. A team of Egyptian and French scientists from the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology uncovered an ancient military vessel near what was once its mooring location. Interestingly, the ship was found not far from the Temple of Amun, one of the most sacred and famous structures of the ancient city. According to preliminary analyses by Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, the ship measures about 82 feet long. It was equipped with both oars and a large sail and was built using traditional ancient Egyptian shipbuilding techniques. This suggests that it may once have served as an important warship or patrol vessel in the harbor's defense system. But the story does not end there. When archaeologists expanded their exploration to another section of the submerged city, they discovered the remains of a Greek funerary complex dating back to the early 4th century BC. This discovery revealed something extremely fascinating. Toward the end of the Pharaonic period, Greek merchants had been allowed to settle in Thonis Herakleion. They did not simply come to trade and then leave. These merchants built their own temples near the massive temple dedicated to the god Amun, the supreme deity in ancient Egyptian belief. This clearly shows that the port city was once a powerful center of cultural interaction between Egypt and the Greek world. However, When the natural disaster struck, everything collapsed. The religious structures built by the Greeks were also swept into the catastrophe, buried beneath the ruins along with the Temple of Amun and the rest of the city. So what do you think? How many untold stories might Thonis Heracleon still be hiding beneath the waters of the Mediterranean Sea? Could the next discovery completely change what we know about the history of ancient Egypt? If you happen to know something interesting about this mystery, don't hesitate to share it with us. 40,000-year-old full mummy found almost perfectly preserved in Siberia. Did you know that discovering fossils of ancient animals is already an extremely difficult task? In most cases, after tens of thousands of years buried underground, what remains are usually only a few scattered bones. If scientists are lucky, they might uncover a nearly complete skeleton. But sometimes, nature creates moments so extraordinary that they leave the entire scientific community in awe. This time, such a miracle happened in the freezing land of Siberia, a region that many people have long referred to with an eerie nickname, the Gateway to Hell. Right in the Bottigiaka crater sediment area of Siberia, scientists recently documented an extraordinary discovery. They found the body of a young horse estimated to be about 40,000 years old, and its condition is almost unbelievably well preserved. Not only the skeleton, but the entire body of this animal has remained intact after tens of thousands of years buried within permafrost. A creature that lived around 40,000 years ago, during a time when modern humans were still in the early chapters of their history, has now appeared before scientists looking almost exactly as it did when it was alive. The foal was discovered deep within the frozen layers of Bottigiaka. When researchers carefully brought it to the surface and began examining it, they realized that it had been only about 3 months old when it died. What makes the discovery even more astonishing is that its fur, mane, and even its tail are still intact. Not only that, but many of its internal organs have also been preserved in nearly complete condition. Experts say discoveries like this are extremely rare. In archaeology and paleontology, finding a prehistoric animal with soft tissue, fur, and internal organs still preserved is considered a true scientific treasure. Every small detail can help researchers better understand the environments in which ancient animals lived in Earth's distant past. This remarkable discovery quickly attracted the attention of scientists from around the world. Specialists from Northeastern Federal University partnered with researchers from Kindai University to analyze this precious specimen. They hope that the 40,000-year-old foal will reveal important clues about ancient climates and ecosystems that existed during the Ice Age. The location where the foal was discovered, Bottigiaka crater, is itself an extraordinary place. The massive crater is about 300 feet deep and nearly half a mile wide, about 0.5 miles. But what makes it even more remarkable is that it is not a stable natural formation. Instead, the crater continues to expand as the permafrost beneath the ground gradually melts. According to scientists, the edge of the crater can grow by about 33 to 98 feet every year. This slow but powerful process of thawing has unintentionally unlocked ancient secrets that have been trapped in ice for tens of thousands of years. And the foal is not the only discovery made at Bottigiaka. In the past, researchers have uncovered many other fossils there, including remains of ancient moose, woolly mammoths, and various other prehistoric animals. However, Bottigiaka is famous not only for its scientific discoveries. For many years, local residents have shared strange stories about unusual phenomena in the area. Some claim that mysterious sounds can occasionally be heard rising from deep underground, sometimes even loud explosive noises echoing from the region they call the Gateway to Hell. While these stories remain controversial, scientists see Bottigiaka in a very different way. To them, it is like a gateway leading directly into Earth's distant past. According to Semyon Grigoriev, the head of the Mammoth Museum, the discovery of this ancient foal provides a rare opportunity to study the environments in which animals lived during the Ice Age. By analyzing its tissues, DNA, and remaining biological traces, scientists may be able to reconstruct parts of the climate and ecosystem that existed tens of thousands of years ago. Even more importantly, at a time when climate change is causing permafrost to melt faster than ever, discoveries like this could help us better understand the long history of environmental change on our planet. And who knows, as the ancient ice continues to thaw, Siberia may reveal even more creatures that have been sleeping beneath the frozen ground for tens of thousands of years. After all, our world still holds countless mysteries, especially those hidden deep beneath thick layers of ancient ice. 408 footprints from 20,000 years ago, revealed in Africa, a moment of ancient human life frozen in history. In a dry and rugged region of northern Tanzania, scientists have uncovered a remarkable trace of the past, something that can almost be compared to a photograph of ancient history. But instead of a camera capturing the moment, it was the ground itself that preserved it. At this site, American researchers discovered 408 footprints left by ancient humans, all of them still preserved in nearly perfect condition after tens of thousands of years. This is considered the largest number of fossilized human footprints ever discovered in Africa. According to initial analyses, these footprints date back between about 19,100 and 5,760 years ago. Experts believe the reason these prints survived for so long is due to a natural accident that happened thousands of years ago. After a volcanic eruption, a layer of lava cooled and hardened over the ground, unintentionally creating something like a natural layer of concrete. This preserved every step taken by the ancient people who once walked across the surface. It may sound unbelievable, but each footprint here looks as if a single step has been frozen in time. According to evolutionary biologist Kevin Hatala from Chatham University, who also led the research team, finding so many clearly preserved ancient human footprints is extremely rare. He explained that these traces act like a doorway into the past, allowing scientists to visualize human life at a very specific moment in history. In other words, instead of only seeing bones or stone tools, researchers can now observe something far more direct: the actual footsteps of ancient people. After conducting biometric analysis, measuring the size, shape, and depth of each footprint, the team proposed a fascinating hypothesis. They believe the prints may have been left by 17 individuals, including 14 adult women, 2 adult men, and 1 teenage boy. But what makes the story even more vivid is the direction of movement shown by the footprints. When scientists examine them more closely, they notice that most of the footprints from the 14 women move in the same direction, with occasional pauses along the path. This pattern suggests they were likely moving slowly while gathering food, possibly foraging as they traveled. Meanwhile, the footprints of the 3 males appear to approach from a different direction. Based on this evidence, researchers speculate that the group of women may have been out gathering food when they encountered the 3 men, who were likely hunting. After meeting, the 2 groups may have joined together and continued traveling as a larger group in search of food. Traveling together like this would have allowed them to support one another and increase their chances of surviving dangers in the wild. Interestingly, this type of community organization and cooperative behavior can still be observed today in several traditional tribes in East Africa. But the discoveries at the site did not end there. In the same area, scientists also found footprints belonging to several hoofed animals, including zebras, antelope, and buffalo. Even more intriguing is that many of these animal tracks move in the same direction as the ancient human footprints. This led researchers to suggest another fascinating possibility. The group of humans may have cooperated to hunt large animals, creatures that were much larger and stronger than themselves. If that theory is correct, then these footprints are not simply the traces of an ordinary walk. Instead, they may represent evidence of a coordinated group hunt that took place tens of thousands of years ago. Today, the study of ancient footprints is becoming an increasingly important field in science. Unlike bones or tools, footprints provide something far more dynamic. They capture actual movement, giving researchers the feeling that they are witnessing a real moment of human activity from the distant past. And discoveries like this are not limited to Africa. American scientists are currently collaborating with experts around the world to study tens of thousands of ancient footprints found at White Sands National Park. These footprints are also tens of thousands of years old and belong to both humans and various ancient animals. Early research results from that site suggest that even during the Stone Age, humans were already hunting animals far larger than themselves. This reveals something remarkable about our ancestors. They were not weak or helpless, as some people might imagine. Instead, they worked together, planned strategically, and relied on the strength of their community to survive in a harsh natural world. So what do you think? Do you believe this group of ancient humans truly cooperated to hunt large animals together? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. the 3,000-year-old statue bearing the majestic image of Pharaoh Ramses II. On March 7th, archaeologists from Germany and Egypt presented the world with an extraordinary discovery: a colossal statue believed to depict Ramesses II, the ruler often referred to as the great ancestor of the North African kingdom. The statue was excavated at the ruins of the Temple of Ramses II, located in the area of the ancient city of Heliopolis, which today lies in eastern Cairo. This discovery is not merely a statue, it is like a bridge through time, transporting us back nearly 3,000 years to the golden age of ancient Egypt. The statue was carved from quartzite, an extremely hard stone known for its durability and resistance to weathering. This explains how it has managed to survive through many millennia. Khalid El-Anani described the discovery in detail. Archaeologists recovered the torso of the statue, the lower half of the head, along with the crown and a fragment of the right eye. After years of anticipation, the moment when the excavation team finally managed to position the head fragment was filled with excitement that words could hardly describe. Many experts agree that this may be one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the decade, capturing the attention of the global community. What makes the find even more valuable is its strong connection to the history of Pharaoh Ramses II himself, the third ruler of Egypt's 19th dynasty, who reigned from 1279 to 1213 BC. Ramses II is famous not only for his remarkably long reign, but also for his military achievements. During his rule, Egypt's borders expanded as far as Syria in the east and northern Sudan in the south. Later generations honored him with titles such as the Great Ancestor and the Great King of Kings, reflecting the immense power and influence he held, an influence that has endured for thousands of years. You might also wonder whether archaeologists discovered anything else at the site besides the massive statue of Ramses II. Indeed, they did. Researchers also uncovered the upper portion of a limestone statue measuring about 31.5 inches, believed to represent Seti II, the grandson of Ramses II. This discovery suggests that the area was once a major political and cultural center of a powerful royal lineage. Experts are now continuing the excavation in hopes of recovering the remaining pieces. Their goal is to fully reconstruct the statue and eventually display it at the Grand Egyptian Museum, offering the world a remarkable new window into Egypt's glorious past. You can probably imagine the enormous historical and cultural value that this statue represents, not only for archaeology, but also for Egypt's tourism industry. Following the 2011 uprising that led to the removal of President Hosni Mubarak, tourism in the country suffered a significant decline. Now, with the discovery of this monumental statue of Ramses II, Egypt hopes to once again attract international visitors and revive interest in its ancient heritage. In doing so, the country also aims to strengthen its economy by restoring a vital source of foreign revenue. In many ways, this ancient statue is more than just a relic of stone. It may also become a symbol of Egypt's renewed connection with the world. 40 ghost ships beneath the Black Sea, a historical treasure buried for thousands of years. Deep beneath the dark waters of the Black Sea, where sunlight can barely reach, scientists have uncovered a site that sends chills down the spine. Resting quietly about 492 feet below the seafloor are the remains of more than 40 ancient shipwrecks. They lie there like silent ghosts of the past, preserving stories from a time when maritime trade flourished across these waters. This remarkable discovery was made by an international expedition as part of the Black Sea Maritime Archaeology Project. The project brings together researchers from several countries and is led by the Center for Maritime Archaeology. At first, the team's goal was simply to map ancient landscapes that once existed around the Black Sea, but were submerged as sea levels gradually rose over thousands of years. However, during their survey, they began noticing unusual shapes scattered across the seabed. As their exploration equipment moved closer, a haunting scene slowly emerged, what looked like an ancient ship graveyard. Wooden hulls rested at angles on the ocean floor. Some vessels had partially collapsed with time, yet many still retained enough of their original form to reveal their structure. According to John Adams, the project leader, even the research team was astonished that these ships had survived for hundreds, possibly thousands of years beneath the sea. To investigate the mysterious site, researchers relied on some of the most advanced underwater exploration technologies available today. They deployed two remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, robotic submersibles capable of diving to depths of up to 5,900 feet and traveling at speeds of over 6.8 miles per hour. Equipped with high-resolution cameras and sophisticated seabed scanning systems, these machines recorded detailed images of the ocean floor. Thanks to this technology, scientists were able to study the structure of the ancient vessels without physically disturbing them. By examining the shapes of the hulls, the design of the masts, and several surviving structural features, experts determined that many of the ships appear to be connected to the Byzantine Empire and the Ottoman Empire, two powerful civilizations that controlled and utilized trade routes across the Black Sea for centuries. In other words, these ships may serve as living evidence that the region was once a busy commercial corridor, where goods, people, and cultures from different lands came together and exchanged ideas and merchandise. One aspect of the discovery that particularly amazed scientists is the remarkable level of preservation of the shipwrecks. Normally, wooden structures underwater are quickly destroyed by microorganisms and marine life. However, the Black Sea has a very unusual natural condition. Its deep waters contain almost no oxygen. This oxygen-poor environment acts like a natural preservation vault, allowing the shipwrecks to remain astonishingly intact for centuries. Professor John Adams explained that using underwater 3D imaging technology, the research team can recreate highly accurate digital models of each ship without disturbing the delicate seabed environment. These digital reconstructions will later be combined with historical records to rebuild detailed models of the vessels. Through further study, scientists hope to determine the exact age of each ship, when they sank, and the role they played in ancient trade networks. Initial assessments suggest that most of these vessels were not warships, but rather merchant ships used to transport goods between communities around the Black Sea. If that conclusion proves correct, these wrecks would essentially form an underwater archive of history, helping researchers better understand how people traded, traveled, and connected with one another in the ancient world. Each ship resting down there may once have carried cargoes of grain, wine, metals, or other valuable goods of the ancient era. And then, perhaps because of a violent storm, a navigation accident, or some other misfortune, they sank to the ocean floor, taking their stories with them for thousands of years. So what do you think caused dozens of ships to end up resting together at the bottom of the Black Sea? Was it maritime disaster, war, or could there still be another hidden mystery waiting to be discovered? As you can see, this world is far larger than anything we have ever truly understood. Every ocean, every stretch of land, and even the layers of sediment deep beneath the seafloor are quietly preserving countless stories from the past. Ancient ships resting silently beneath the waters of the Black Sea or any other archaeological discovery are like pieces of a massive puzzle that help us slowly gain a clearer understanding of human history. Yet the more we explore, the more we realize just how many mysteries still remain unsolved. So among the discoveries we talked about today, which one impressed you the most? Share your thoughts by leaving a comment below. I'm really curious to hear your perspective. And if you enjoy fascinating discovery stories like these, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming journeys into the past. For now, goodbye, and I'll see you in the next adventure.